This feels to me like the end of gender. I think the end of gender has 3 stages: the flight of the cowards, the howl of the zealots, and the prosecution of the monsters.
Yes. Hey.
Hello.
Hey, Dennis. How are you?
I'm pretty good, mate. Head spinning a bit, but how the hell are you?
I'm all right. I feel a bit weird because we've just been talking for about 5 minutes anyway, and now I'm pretending that we've only just started talking. I'm good. I got back.
Yeah,
So,
I was a pro.
I got back from the gym actually only about an hour ago, and I'm sitting down.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get up again. My legs won't do it. I dropped my asthma pump and my phone on the floor in the gym, and I went to pick it up and I couldn't. I could actually couldn't bend down. So I did this instead. I went like that. And then I leant down. And as I got down, I thought I'm not going to be able to get back up. So I just sat on the floor and I just pretended to stretch for a little while. And I was like, how am I going to get home? Because I have to walk up 2 flights of stairs to get out the gym as well. I was fucked. And then I have to walk upstairs to get in the flat as well. And now that I've sat down, I'm not moving. This is it.
I solved this problem tonight by not going to the gym and just watching telly, mate. And
see,
I recommend
this is why you're a clever man.
Rapidly gaining weight.
That's what I did. I've just spent I had that hay fever. I think it was a cold as well. And I've just spent about 2 weeks just eating crisps. And then I thought, do you know what? I just need to not do that anymore. It's a bad idea.
A good 2 weeks though.
Yeah, it's been a good 2 weeks. I always use being ill as an excuse to eat an extra packet of Monster Munch.
Oh, good on you. Which, as we established on Twitter, is the king of all crisps, I think. Thick pickled onion.
Yes, the pickled onion.
I was in complete agreement with you on that. Yeah.
Do you know what? People have to agree with me on it because on the Raging Shit Goblin t-shirts, I'm sending out pickled onion crisps with them. And whether you like it or not, that's the deal.
It's getting a bit gothic, your merchandise at the moment. We've had the Raging Shit Goblin. Then we've had Mermaids Are Dangerous.
Have you seen my Halloween one? It's a gravestone with a raven on top, and on the gravestone it says "R.I.P. Your feelings." That's my Halloween one.
It's only a matter of time till we get a gender ghoul, surely, or a gender borg, or
yes, I'll do it. And I want to do a ghost. I want to do a ghosty one for Halloween. A gender ghoul would be pretty good.
Do a free floating gender ghost, like the one we're all supposed to have, the gender soul.
Yes. All right, I'll do that.
Oh god, no, do that with Ghostbusters, mate, and have a load of TERFs getting it.
That's such a good idea.
You could do the all-female Ghostbusters.
I could do like Maya Forster, Kathleen Stock, J.K. Rowling, Helen Joyce, all in there.
Love it.
Busters.
Do it, mate.
So good. I like it. We'll see how that goes on my drawing because something like that could, the trans rights activist would say that that's inciting violence.
Oh, I see. Yeah,
because they've got the Ghostbuster guns, haven't they? And they'll say, "Look, Birdie's threatening to shoot us."
Yeah, that's right. Because when they have bloodstained T-shirts with "Die Turf Die," or when they are literally industrially castrating children or mutilating little girls and cutting their breasts off, that's not violence, but words of violence. I see.
Absolutely, 100%.
That's how it works, isn't it?
Yep.
Oh, a load of nonsense. Honestly, these people.
So how are you doing? It's been a bloody hell of a week, isn't it?
It's been extraordinary. I'm reminded of those quotes about sort of Eastern European, like Ceausescu type dictatorships, where people say, nobody thought the dictatorship was going to fall, and then suddenly everyone thought it would fall, or everyone thought it would last forever until nobody thought it would last forever. It feels to me like this is crumbling, this stuff at the moment. I'm feeling very hopeful. I've said on my Substack that this feels to me like the end of gender. I think the end of gender has 3 stages: the flight of the cowards, the howl of the zealots, and the prosecution of the monsters. And I saw
that and I absolutely loved it.
Thanks, mates. Thanks. And I've always thought gender was composed of cowards and zealots.
It absolutely is.
Have you noticed how quiet social media is? That's the cowardice, I think. I think the cowards are, little Wagamama pulling their deal with mermaids. National Lottery don't want anything to do.
Yeah, I can't hide my face
lonely
about
figure
that.
they cut. What a lonely figure this mermaid dragged from the depths now cuts.
Well, that's how it's going to be, because when the detransitioners speak out, they get attacked, but nobody actually speaks like about detransitioners really on the trans side.
No,
it's like they don't exist to them.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a case of, I think a lot of people are going to pretend this didn't happen as well. I think that's going to be a thing.
Yeah, we're going to get so there'll be denial, won't we? We're going to get rewriting of history.
That's already happening.
Indeed. But I think reality has a persistence and a purchase that lies do not. And the sheer volume of detrans people, and I think it's going to be pretty big, actually.
We ain't seen nothing on the detrans yet. And I already think we've got too many, and we ain't seen nothing.
Yeah. And I think it's going to become unanswerable. And, what a shame. And what an absolute howling tragedy. We said at the time, this is happening. Detrans people are not new. Sinead Watson, God bless her, absolute heroine, has been talking about this for donkey's years. She's been kicked off Twitter 3-4 times. I think when I started getting active on Twitter, the first big sort of someone's been kicked off who shouldn't be kicked off campaign I sort of tried to do my best to help with was Sinead. And Sinead was kicked off for nothing, absolutely nothing. I think
that's
Sinead
crazy.
Was kicked off. Oh yeah, they were desperate to silence her in the same way that they chucked Fred Sargent off because they didn't like him telling the truth about Stonewall. They didn't, in the same way, they didn't like Sinead telling the truth, an epically brave woman. And we had these run of, didn't we, of female detransitioners who bravely spoke out. We're now getting the male ones. They've come.
I was about to say, we're now getting the very young men.
Yeah,
very young, and I think it's very sad. Whether it's men or women, it's very sad either way.
Absolutely, it's horrific. I would say that, and I'm not trying to minimize it, double mastectomy, and I saw someone posting about that today. There's a woman saying, look, I've got no feeling now at all in my chest, and I was told this woman was told she'd get it back in a year, mate. They actually said that to her. They said
that's terrible.
It's criminal.
Do you know what? It's the lying to people as well that pisses me off.
Yeah.
I don't know if I got a bit loud just then. I can't tell.
No, don't worry about it. No,
okay, good.
You're fine. But that would be bad enough. But then when you read someone like Richie Herron, a very brave guy, as we know on Twitter, he goes by the name of Tulip, really brave guy.
Oh yeah,
graphically set out what happens when you have your penis as a man inverted, and then you try to go to the loo, or you try to experience anything approaching sexual.
What he's been through, it was a bit too much for me to read. I had to read it in like 2 stages, and I thought it was graphic, and it is horrific, and it needs to be said. People need to know this is what happened, and not only that, the surgery where do the thing to the penis, that is safer than the phalloplasty, right? But but neither of them are good. Neither of them, I would say, neither of them have good outcomes.
Yeah, I would agree.
It's awful, absolutely awful. And then we've got like this self-perpetuating system where kids that wouldn't have been confused or wouldn't have experienced any sort of body dysmorphia are being preyed on by organisations that are encouraging institutions such as schools to confuse the kids, or even putting it in the cartoons and the books. Confuse the kids. Now they're getting into, wondering about their body, being confused about their body, obsessing over it. And then they have to turn to charities like Mermaids to help them sort it out. So they're basically fishing for their patients.
Yeah.
And then
precisely.
It's sick.
It's possible to construe this, is it not, entirely in market terms, as the production of a new consumer base and the recruitment of new customers. That's awfully what it looks like, because what else, frankly, could explain the explosion, particularly in adolescent girls, 2003 to 2013 at the Tavistock. I think it's thousands of percent. I forget exactly what it is.
4,000% it was.
I mean, it's just extraordinary. And these are little human beings. These are little human beings.
Yeah, and kids, actual kids.
You know, the lack of compassion or humanity in this debate. And look, let's just call a spade a spade. What's been happening is the industrialized proselytization of a religion in schools where we must root this out, teaching little children, just at the time they're uncomfortable with their bodies, you've got the wrong body. And you will be happy and popular if we surgically and chemically correct you. I often describe that as an evil without equal. I stand by those words. I think that's exactly what it is. It is no surprise to me it draws in autistic kids. You know,
oh, no surprise to me either.
Kids who are going to be, by and large, socially isolated, who are going to find it difficult to navigate social mores, who are not going to be used to having a popular identity, who are drawn to thought systems where this goes in this column, that goes in that column, a bit like that trans flag, the blue here,
yep,
and the pink there. Doesn't surprise me that it draws in kids that are going to grow up to be gay, or that their homophobic parents take them to these places. And it doesn't surprise me that it draws in care leavers and looked after children, who are another big cohort in this.
So basically vulnerable kids.
Precisely.
But it draws in kids that aren't particularly vulnerable as well, because I know some teenagers who have said that to me that they, you know, within family and that they feel like in school, unless you say you're one of these things, you're kind of an outcast. So if you're just cisgendered or heteronormative or whatever it is, you're not cool. You're not in with the crowd. So the easiest thing to do is say you're non-binary, because then you don't have to do anything. Yeah.
And it's meaningless. I mean, James Esses, you're absolutely right. James Esses posted a really interesting graphic that I think it was mermaids were putting out into schools, or if not mermaids, one of the other ghouls, one of the other zombies, one of the other undead, these awful people that prey on kids. And it had two pictures. And the picture on one side was like rainbow, trans, genderqueer, whatever. And it was all beautiful colors. And then the picture on the other side was, it was like a fabulous man with an umbrella or something. The picture on the other side was a little girl on her own in the rain. And it was black and white, and it was cis straight.
Yeah, so, I knew you were going to say something like that, because I've seen the, I think the cis flag is just grey, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's grey and black and white stripe. What kid would choose that one when you've got the cool glittery rainbow one next to it?
Yeah, exactly. You know, and this is very seductive for children. There's a reason
very
that children love things like Pokemon, for example. There's a reason boys are drawn to Warcraft with its hundreds of different systems and so on. Children like these little systems. They like these little organizational systems because it makes sense of the world. It tells them where they are. And gender being principally a bureaucratic, mediocre, unpleasant doctrine for those who are organizationally minded, delights in this because it has 100 flags, it has 100 stupid different identities, it has 100 different speech codes, 100 different pronouns, it has all these little systems. It has
your own secret language as well that only the kids can understand, except it's not quite like that, because when I was younger, I'm really sorry for interrupting. When I was younger, like we had like the emo thing, and we had the sort of like skater thing, you know, like the Blink-182 and Avril Lavigne and all that. We had all that when I was a teenager. And if one of our parents tried to dress like Blink-182 or Avril Lavigne, we'd be humiliated to death in our social scene. That was absolute suicide, that your mum and dad would listen to Blink-182 or something. It was that you didn't want your parents doing or liking what you want them to not like the music you're listening to. You want them to not like the clothes you're wearing and the piercings you're getting. Exactly. And nowadays, it's the parents doing the trend and putting it on the kids, and then they're all joining in. That's a bit weird and creepy.
Well, it speaks to the top-down nature of gender, doesn't it? Because this didn't grow up on the streets. It's not an organic or genuine youth movement. This was dreamt up in boardrooms. It was dreamt up in academia. It was dreamt up in these slightly unreal places and then imposed. this youth movements, as you've identified, in general do not involve a complicity between generations or that Munchausen-y type often relationship that we see in gender, that complicity. It's not a youth movement. And that is why you see it straddling generations. But the alliances never sit uneasily. So it's always the autogynephile men who would never dream of having their penises amputated, who demand that the probably homosexual boys do so for their validation.
I don't understand why these people, I've never understood why they lumped in as a group, like the trans community.
It's politically useful. It's politically useful to AGPs to sacrifice the testicles of gay boys at the altar of the flesh gods, to validate them, to make them play Mother Teresa. It's not their balls that are going to cut off, mate. You will rarely see that. And, let's remind ourselves, 90% or 95% of the so-called trans women, frankly, have as much in their pants as I do. And, that ought to tell you something about this. And if we look at the asymmetry in what they're prepared to put on the operating table, which is nothing, as compared to what they demand children do, so that they can play the role of the concerned caregiver, that should tell you how asymmetrical and how exploitative this relationship is, because that's what's going on. And let us remember that, the vast majority of these autogynephiles are heterosexual men. AGP is another way of being a straight man. It's nothing to do with gay rights. It has nothing to do with the gay rights movement. That's why it doesn't understand it, and that's why it speaks for it and it speaks over it, because it doesn't respect us, and it certainly doesn't respect the next generation of gay men. And I realize, obviously, I talk a lot about gay men because obviously that's my particular focus, but I shouldn't neglect the fact that it also demands the same. It demands equal sort of flesh sacrifices for women and girls, and I particularly shouldn't neglect that, because, as we know, the skew in the Tavistock figures have gone from about 50-50-ish, and actually I think majority boy at one point now, to vast majority girls, and that's still the case.
I think that's because girls are more susceptible to feeling negatively about their bodies, especially at a certain age. Yeah, and social contagion. But I really do think, I don't know who it was that said this, but girls will share like their emotions, like especially teenage girls. So a teenage girl, if you're friends or you're in the friend group and one girl's been dumped by her boyfriend, that they'll share that. And it's not just that she's telling her friends, they're all sharing that emotion. They're feeling it together. And I don't know if boys necessarily do that, because I've never been a boy and I don't feel like one. So I don't know if boys do
try
that.
Not to talk about emotions, mate. We just get drunk.
Yeah, I thought so. Dudes has basically got a hairy wife. I call him the hairy wife. So, and like his guy best friend. And they will talk, if something serious happens, like a real serious life event, they'll sort of talk about it or not. It's kind of a guy thing. They'll go out on their bikes in the woods and get muddy and maybe have a cup of tea out of a flask and have a quick word, and then they'll just carry on riding their bikes or whatever. Whereas me, like when I went out with the local turf gang I've got, if one of the women have something going on, immediately we're all doing a round of drinks in and we're all ears and we're all feeling it with her, and it's different. But I think with boys, I don't, like I said, I'm not a boy, so I don't understand it all. But I think with boys, I am particularly worried because I don't think society cares about boys. I just don't. Especially boys that are already a little bit outcasted or a little bit weird or a little bit marginalised in some other way, like, they don't get on with other people their age. I just think we're gonna see a lot more boys. Maybe they're going to take a little bit longer to come out with their detransition stories because I don't think society cares as much. I don't think on a wide scale, I think with people like Richie Tulip, he's got a lot of support off of especially in the GC world and turf world and from everybody on our side, basically. But out there, I think there's a lot of hostility towards boys, and I think that's going to be a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know, because I see it affecting girls more.
Yeah,
just in terms of numbers.
Yes, I agree.
And that tells me on one analysis, well, you could take from that society doesn't care about girls, because
you're right, they don't.
There's all these girls going down there potentially. And let's be clear about this. They are being told that amputation is liberation.
Yeah, do you know what? You're right.
Extraordinary thing to say. So you could make the argument the other way around. In a way, I'm not trying to diminish or dismiss your point, because I think it's an interesting point.
I think we're both right. I think we both are.
In a way, I don't care. In a way, what I care about is there is clear and present danger. And the clear and present danger.
I do care about that, but here's my thing, Dennis. Here's my thing. I'm worried about is I think we're going to win this battle, if you want to call it. We're going to win the battleground on gender identity ideology, and then we've got other battles to fight after that I already see are embedded in our society now. Like the free speech stuff. When we win gender identity, we're still going to fight for free speech. Yeah, that's still going to be under scrutiny. We're still going to be fighting about, the war of the sexes between men and women. We're going to still be fighting that. There might be backlash on the gay and lesbian scene. We're going to have to try and repair that somewhat. There's a lot of work I think we're going to do, but I think we're going to be really well equipped once we've won the gender identity.
We'll be veterans, mate.
We'll
have a load of medals.
We'll have the credibility of having. We'll have the credibility of having defeated this, though. Like how Stonewall gained credibility on the gay rights front and the gay liberation. Stonewall won that credibility, and then they used it for evil afterwards. Well, maybe we can win credibility on this and not use it for evil afterwards. Just continue.
I'll do my best, mate. I'll do my best.
Do you know what? A lot of people, and I ain't got a problem with this, a lot of people just want to win this and that's it. A lot of people just want their kids to not be sterilised and mutilated, and then that's it. They want to get on with their life. And I think that's fine.
It's pretty reasonable, I think, as a position.
I'm a little bit of a gobby bitch, and there's going to be something else. There's going to be other things I've got an opinion on for sure, But I'm really positive for the first time in ages, because of what's been happening with mermaids all week, and Tavistock and all the court cases, because this is being won through the courts. It really is. It's not people not being necessarily persuaded on social media, although I do enjoy the social media side of it, because I can just put pictures out and piss people off and do it that way. But that's not the only reason I do pictures.
Well, that's when you're not sticking razor blades under stickers in Norwich, according to some bloke who seems to have borrowed Michael Fabricant's wig.
But I was first of all, I was annoyed because the razor blade thing is so stupid, it's beyond belief.
Where did you get the razor blades from, love? Have you been out buying massive packs of Gillette or something?
Amazon.
Amazon. Yeah, got them all off Amazon. These people. I mean, it's too stupid.
Too stupid for words. I didn't give it the time of day, but the haircut thing did annoy me because I had that haircut earlier in the year.
No, so you did not have this haircut.
Now.
You did not have
the
this
exact
haircut.
Same? Okay, good.
Not have this haircut.
I'm doing the Boyzone thing at the moment.
I think it suits you. I like it.
I think Boyzone suits me as well.
Yeah.
I should have gone Boyzone a lot sooner.
Hey, what did you do over the weekend? I was in Norwich Town Centre with a pack of razor blades and a load of stickers.
I thought you'd been serious. I was like,
yeah, sure I was. Yeah, I had a whole weekend.
I got drunk with Artie Morty.
Yeah, good on you. Good on you.
Yeah, he came to my house party. That was quite nice. He just turned up. I was like,
excellent.
Yeah.
The mess we're in.
Celebrity.
The mess we're about to get in.
So good. And I liked it because my family don't know who he is. So that was brilliant.
He's a GC celeb. God bless him. I went out with him a little while back, but I felt like a bit of a nerd because I took him to an academic lecture. And then,
did you? Did he like it?
Yeah, he did actually. It was really good. And it was Professor Alice Sullivan from UCL. It was about academic freedom. So it was all on point with kind of stuff we discussed. And, Mayor Stater was there, Professor Kathleen Stark, all
that's
that
so
lot.
Good.
So Well, do you know what? It was amazing. And Professor Sullivan said to me after, I think it was Professor Sullivan said to me afterwards, it is big progress that we can have these meetings, talk about this stuff now, and there's no protest.
Fuck yes.
No, there's no rubbish. That is a change on campus. And when you said, I think before we started recording, that, it all came from universities. That's quite a big deal.
It fucking did. And it did when the Salem witch trials happened as well. This came out through the universities.
God, really?
And the idea, because the working classes and poor people, they had witches on every street. And it was a known thing that you go down the street and there's like some woman with a cat that knows how to do all the herbs. And she's she's basically making paracetamol or something. But, she's doing it all herbal, and she knows how to, like, she can figure out what ailments you've got. And so they did have witches, and it wasn't always women. Sometimes there was the occasional man that knew how to make stuff. So they'd make medicine, and witches were, like, as far as I can tell, so somebody's probably going to correct me if I'm wrong, but they were pretty much like an essential part of society until the idea came through that they were evil. And there was that guy that wrote the manifesto, wasn't there? He wrote, I can't remember what it was called, but it was some sort of manifesto about how evil witches are and how you've got to interrogate them, and they steal your babies and replace them with a changeling and things like that.
Yeah.
So it seemed to me like lots of different folklore was jammed into it, and all this superstitious stuff that people were scared of because obviously they didn't have science yet and they didn't understand things because it was all still very godly. So
did you see?
It came out of academia. And then,
totally.
I was sorry to interrupt. No, it came out of
worries.
academia, and it trickled down, and it obviously affected the working class and poorer people first. And then when the witch trials started going up to, like, the priest or something like that in the village, somebody of that level, when they ended up putting somebody of that level on trial, that's when people started questioning it and going, well, that's not really fair. You can't you can't ask her questions like, is she a witch? Because if she says no, then she's lying, and if she says yes, then she's admitting it. And they started to question it, and it's like, so you didn't question it when it was just Birdie who lives down the road, but you will question it if it's, do you know what I mean?
I would so come to your witch trial. She's a witch. She's a witch. She puts razor blades under stickers.
I would go, he's a witch.
Yeah. They'd believe you, mate. They believe you with
people,
me.
Do you know what's astonishing about it as well? People threw their own family members under the bus. It wasn't just people that were having beef. It wasn't just people that didn't like each other. They put their own families in, And and there was a point as well. I think it was the Salem witch trial. I need to go back and remember. I'm so shit at remembering names and dates, but I remember stories. And there was one bit where basically the whole town was in jail, and that's when they started questioning it as well, because they pretty much jailed everybody. And when Surrey police last week had a go at that woman for misgendering, had a go at Sybil, didn't they? There was someone called Sybil on Twitter. And Surrey police had a go for misgendering the convicted paedophile. Right. And I wrote...
that was Sussex police. That was Sussex police.
Oh, Sussex police. Yeah. Sorry. Do you know what? They're all the same, aren't they? Yeah,
don't worry. Yeah. Don't worry.
I filmed a video about it that I haven't released yet, and I kept calling them Essex police, and I had to keep cutting it out. So I'm nearly there. Sussex police. Okay, those wankers. Am I allowed to say wankers? I think I am. It's my video, my rules.
You said it now. They've heard worse.
Sussex police, they put out the hate crime thing, basically insinuating that we can all get done for it. And I said that they can't arrest us all, but if they can, I said something about that. And I was thinking, actually, they should arrest us all. They should arrest us all at once, all at the same time, to go around all of the country and arrest everyone who's misgendered this paedophile.
Love it.
It would be great. Can you imagine how that would get in the news, and people would just be really confused at why suddenly 200,000 people are sitting in prison for misgendering the paedophile.
And 200,000 really gobby, quite argumentative people as well, who are obsessed with this debate.
Well, yeah, I suppose.
It's like bloody hell. That made me laugh, I have to say, because it's like, as a police force banging up a very unpleasant sex offender on a 30,
really bad
30 count indictment, so 30 different allegations of rape and sexual abuse.
Yeah, it ain't nothing, is it?
Yeah, exactly. Getting that person a 20-year sentence, that should be a good news story for the police. That should be really hard to mess up. But you know what? Sussex police, you managed it. Well done.
Yeah, they really
you managed to take something where the public should have been going, police, you're great, to a story so bad, the sitting Home Secretary told you off. I mean,
I told Dudes about that. He didn't believe me. He was like, what? He was going, what, really? What, the actual Home Secretary?
Yeah.
I was like,
hey,
dude,
love,
look at this.
How was your day at work running the Twitter account for Sussex Police? Oh, not great. I got bollocked by the actual Home Secretary.
Do you think the person who wrote the tweet got a bollocking?
Yeah, I imagine that they did. I don't know, but I mean, you'd like to think so, wouldn't you?
I would like to think so, because if somebody was running my social media, if I made enough money to hire someone to run my social media, which first of all I wouldn't do because no one can replace me because I do good comments. But no, I can't pay someone to do that.
I'm too great.
Yeah, I'm too good.
Love it.
No, but I can't pay someone to be my personality. That would be weird.
Yeah.
But if I did pay someone to do my social media, you know, like how celebrities do, I'd be fucking fuming if somebody fucked my social media like that. If somebody went after people for misgendering and a paedophile on my Twitter account, I'd be like, you're sacked immediately.
I wish I still had a Twitter account, which I sadly lost, but I might be getting back. You never know. I might have a third regeneration with
Elon's
Mr. Musk.
Coming to rescue.
Come on, Elon. Come on, Elon. Let me back on. It'll be a laugh. It'll really upset the other side.
I know a lot of people are scared of Elon Musk running it because then he will be the tyranny. But it's like, there's always going to be someone tyrannical running these.
Yeah, exactly. And it can't be any worse than our AGP, blue-haired, pronoun-having woke overlords who have been on a banning spree. I see poor Serena, who's a very thoughtful, decent feminist, who just did a couple of days ago, did a wonderful thread about the poor women in Iran. She got a ban for misgendering or some I know. And she's a very thoughtful, decent human being.
I'm waiting.
It can't be any
for my
worse
ban.
than that. You know, I mean, I'd rather have Musk. But I tell you what, if I had a Twitter account, though, I simply would have replied to that tweet. That is a bloke. He is a nonce. Come and nick me. Go on.
Yeah, a lot of people did do that. Julie Bindle said she's got the kettle on. I wrote that I would give them my home address in a DM.
Yeah.
So loads of people. That was the sentiment, really. All the comments, there was hundreds of them. Hundreds of women saying, yeah, you can arrest me if you want. I'll give you my address.
Yeah, come on.
And that's what I thought. I thought maybe they should arrest it. Can you imagine a turf jowl? A turf jowl cell.
God above. It's going to get rough. It's going to get rough. Having said that, actually, if there was a GC gay guy one, I'd be bang up for that because all the GC gay guys
that would be
hot.
right next door. Definitely.
They're so hot.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But you know,
this is well known amongst gay men. All the GC side is.
I'm straight and I'm taken, so I haven't noticed. But I do think.
Yeah. You just have to trans-identify and come into our prison. It'd be no good for you then, because we're all gay.
Yeah, true.
You'd have a laugh, though.
Definitely. When I went to Brighton, actually, there was quite a few gay men there, and I was surprised at the number of men that were there. I thought it was really good, actually, to see the male support.
Yeah, I think that's needed. I think it's going to increase. The day before, my fellow director at the Gay Men's Network, John Hayward, went up to Leeds to help Hannah Borelli and their lot for Lesbian Strength. And then the day after, I don't know, I think John was in Brighton as well, but certainly Menno was there. I know Artie Morty was there. There's loads more blokes there. And I would expect that trend to continue, mate.
Yeah, I hope so. Because where are the gay men with it? What are the gay, like, do you know a lot? I think the gay men are getting way more animated. I've been in talks today with various people in various countries about setting up a gay men's network in their countries. The disgraceful assault on Fred Sargent about 10 days ago, I think woke up a lot of gay men. Well, I was bloody scared by that. You know what, mate? Because, you know, I don't want to be dramatic about it, but you push a 74-year-old over. It's not a joke. And I had people commenting, I don't know who they were, but I blocked these people anyway because they've always just got a cartoon profile picture. But I did have people commenting saying like, oh, he didn't get beaten up, he just got pushed. And I was like, Well, do you know what? You shouldn't be putting your hands on anybody in any situation. Your hand should not be touching anybody's body
he got
in
pushed
any
to the ground.
situation.
They robbed him. They nicked a load of stuff off him. They poured up a hot coffee on him. He had to go to hospital for CT scans. I dread to think what his poor husband was thinking about.
And also, it's traumatic.
He's very worried. Of course it is, mate. Of course it is. And, you know, Freddie's obviously very stoic. He's very sort of heroic, tough guy, former cop,
old school,
and so on. But he's 74. Anyway, every cloud has a silver lining, I suppose. Lots and lots of gay guys have woken up, I think.
I hope so.
I hope so as well, mate. I mean, as you know, I'm always railing against Vichy gays because I believe them to be turkeys voting for Christmas. I think they're betraying the next generation of gay men. I think they're betraying their brothers who are fighting this. I despair when I see gay men arguing in favor of this. I was, embarrassed when I saw Johnny Come Lately, John Nicholson MP, who came out like 10 minutes ago, give evidence for mermaids. What a traitor and what a pathetic man he is. In the same way that man so thick you probably have to water him twice a day, who runs the LGBT consortium. I'm not an expert, another gay man supporting this is embarrassing, but there is, there's always been a hardcore of us who are quite stroppy, and I think there are more of us.
Do you think
to put our head above the parapet now?
Do you think in some ways it's a little bit scarier for gay and lesbian people to voice their opinion on this because they know that essentially they're going to be exiled from the community that they feel is meant to be there for them?
Yeah, and Owen Jones said this. There's a horrible interview where Owen Jones is having a go at a bloke called Dan from Sydney, and that's his Twitter account. And Dan's just saying it's about Dan's talking to him about something about women. Dan's sticking up for women at the time. It's not even a gay male issue, and Dan's saying his piece, sort of thing. Feminists have been saying. I forget what the exact issue was. Owen Jones recorded like a 10-minute video. It was basically, everyone hates you people. No one will ever want to sleep with you. That's why you're not welcome at Pride. That's why your families hate. I mean, it was kind of thing that one hears a school bully say. It wasn't really a refutation of any of the substantive arguments that Dan had put forward, because that's not how they roll. So yeah, absolutely. I've had, and I must confess, I've been married for donkey and in a relationship for donkey's years, so it is slightly easier for me. I've spoken to lots of gay guys who say, well, if you go out dating at the moment, like proper dating, not just shagging, and you're having your dinner, this subject comes up, and it's there is a schism in, and it's a deep schism in the gay male and female communities on this. And if you're the wrong side of that, it's as bitter as a war of religion. It really is.
Is a schism a divide?
Yeah, it's just like a religious divide, So, the church has a schism when it slips into Protestant and Catholic.
That makes sense.
So
I can't imagine that. I can't imagine, because obviously I'm with Duz and I've been with him 10 years. So I can't imagine trying to date, not just because of the gender identity stuff, but just our societal environment at the moment as it is. And that there's a lot of hostility in general between men and women as well. So I can't imagine. And a lot of that sort of like not trusting. I don't know if it's genuine hostility. I think it's not trusting each other.
Yeah.
And you can't trust people to have their own mind either. I think people are scared of people having their own mind. Like a lot of it with me, I get a lot of people that can't just tell me that they disagree and leave it as that. They need me to change. They need me to say out loud that I've changed my mind because of them. And it ain't happening. But I don't understand that need.
They'll be waiting a long time with you, my dear.
Ain't gonna happen.
No. And I thankfully don't encounter that very much. I think people
I think it's because I'm an artist as well. I think people feel a certain amount of, especially people that knew me and Duz on the music scene and stuff like that. I think they feel a certain amount of entitlement over us because they've bought CDs or art off of me. They feel like they've bought a part of me, or they've bought me. So technically I should be agreeing with them, or at least changing for them because they've bought something off of me once,
It's just such a fundamentally irrational discussion, though, isn't it? Because the other party starts from the position that you're hateful. And then, and then in order for you to change your view, you have to recant, do penance. I mean, it's all very religious, this stuff, isn't it? And accept that you were indeed sinful and hateful. It's like, go away.
Someone recently told me that I'm carrying the stain of the homophobic craze in the 80s. I was like,
oh, I've had that too.
All I said back was, I wasn't even born till 87. You can't make me carry the sins of people from before I was born, you nutter. That's so religious and weird.
You bitch, I can't believe you're carrying the stain of the 80s homophobia.
I know.
Now I know.
I'm doing it so shamelessly as well.
Yeah.
And you said about starting off in a bad place as well. Someone left a YouTube comment to me a little while ago, and she knows me and Dooz from, I think, Dooz played on stage with her once. She's insisting she was in a band with him. She wasn't. He played on stage with her once. I said hello because you've got to be polite when things like that are happening. And that's about it. That's all I know her. But she came on my YouTube and she was like, "You're disgusting. You're out of order. You're bigger. You need to own up to the harm you're causing. You need to take responsibility." And then I basically said, "No, go away. I don't know you." Then she went mental because apparently she knows me. And then I stopped replying to her. And then the last comment she left me was like, "I can't believe you're not even willing to have a discussion. You can't even have a conversation. This is what everyone says about you. You can't have a conversation. You can't have a decent discussion about this." And I was thinking, well, if you wanted I didn't reply, but I just thought, if you wanted a decent discussion with me about this, like an honest discussion, like a grown up, don't start it by telling me how disgusting I am, what a bigot I am, and how I need to take responsibility for the harm I've caused. It's not a conversation starter, because I'm just going to go, no, see you later.
Can you imagine that actually being said to your face? I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? Like, so
they this won't is the do thing. It to my face.
Of course they wouldn't. Of course they bloody wouldn't. They'd be far too, scared to do it. But it's just, the keyboard warriors, like, you're a horrible human. I get this all the time, I occasionally get called a Nazi hate preacher. I like that one.
Brilliant.
India Willoughby, in a crowd of trans activists protesting LGBT Alliance conference, chanted Nazi at me and Rob Jessel. Rob, of course, is Jewish, so well done, guys. That was a nice touch.
Excellent.
Really, really nice personal touch there for you. But you just, how seriously can you take these people? You can't.
I don't take them seriously at all. I take it seriously in terms of the effect it has on the real life consequences. I take that seriously. Like kids being mutilated, people losing their jobs, people being devastated by it. Like the mental health aspect of being cancelled, I don't think is talked about enough. But then, all the sorts of people that get cancelled to the extent that it's noticeable are the sort of people that don't like to victim themselves online and talk about how bad it is. They're the sort of people that just heroically rise up. So that might be why we don't hear about it enough, like the mental health aspect of it. But I think the real life consequences I take seriously. The actual things that people say to me or about me, I can't take it seriously at all, because it's like a toddler having a rage.
It's exactly what it is.
I've heard it before. I used to babysit, right? And I've had actual 3-year-old look me in the eye while he's shitting on the floor under the table after I told him not to. And he looked me in the eye and he said, "I hate you." Okay? And that's what I think of when these people have a go at me.
That kid's going to go far, though. He's got spirit.
Oh, no, he's actually a good kid. He's like 14
I bet he
now.
is. I do hope
he's
that
a really good kid.
I do hope you could tell the story at his wedding. Please do.
I probably will. Well,
Please do.
I took Doozer to visit them a little while ago, a couple of years ago, just to say hello, because I'm still friends with the family and everything. And I did tell the story. I did retell it. You shat under the table, the reasoning was the dog's allowed to do it, and I was like, the dog's not allowed to do it. The dog just does it. And he was like, well, I can do it as well. Then I was like, I can't really argue with. Like, how do you? I don't know.
Should be a lawyer.
Yeah, they're looking me in the eye and telling me he hates me. And that's how seriously I take it. Because 2 seconds later, he still loved me, because...
Yeah. I think you have to do that with the online nonsense. Because
I don't take it seriously at all, especially if they've got like an anime profile picture. This is going to sound really bad, but I don't feel like or see a person in my head.
Yeah.
That is a nothing to me. It's not even a human. And that's going to sound like I'm dehumanizing people. And I am, because I cannot see a person behind that. And I can't understand it as a person. So I just think, well, this is just someone mouthing off.
Yeah.
Don't mean nothing to me.
And, this is not an academic or leisure debate. We're not doing this for a laugh. Women are getting raped in prisons by men who claim to... And
having babies.
Women. Exactly. There are some prisons where women sleep in shifts so they can keep an eye on the men. Evidence in Scotland that after most of the trans prisoners, 50% of the prisoners who say they're trans, it's after their conviction, when they decide that they'd rather go into the female estate. We've got medical scandals, such as we've discussed in terms of gay and autistic kids. This is not a laugh. It's not, I'm a bit interested in debating the European Union or something like that. This is existential. It goes to the heart of what it means to be a woman and your safety as a woman, and what it means to be a homosexual and your safety as a homosexual. And because it is a war and an emergency defense of the existential category of female and homosexual, I can't get too bothered with little anime brats talking nonsense. I'm very happy, thank you very much. If you want to leave 100 unpleasant comments, don't care, won't read them. Sorry, guys. I'll just
drives your algorithm up as well, so you get more attention on your... So I'm like, you can send me abuse if you want. It just gets more attention. That's great.
Because, at the end of the day, it's not about us. And it's not, obviously it could be a bit unpleasant, but it's not about us. It's not about our feelings. It's about the women in those prison cells. It's about the detransitioners who say, takes me half an hour to go to the loo. Or I can't.
And the kids who are being confused now before they even transition. The kids are getting this shoved in their faces. I'm really scared about
like the kids
my nieces and nephews. I'm scared for them that they'll encounter this in school. And I'm ready though. I'm ready. If this is encountered in their school, I'm going to be telling their mums and dads. I'm going to be saying, you've got an expert here. I'm not an expert in anything really, but you've got an expert in what this ideology is here. And I'm going to tell you what you need to do about it. And I'll go to the school with them.
Yeah, good on you. Well, I saw that wonderful resource, Transgender Trend. I think Safe Schools Alliance also picked this up. I think Sex Matters also did a thing about...
Yeah, they're all brilliant, aren't they?
Here are some guides. I think Sex Matters did a guide recently about, what should you do if your child comes home and says this is what they're teaching me at school. And people need to read this stuff because we have to get this out of schools. We have to get this out of schools.
Do you know what it is? Yeah, people don't feel equipped to deal with it. Like Douglas Murray said that people were feeling intellectually intimidated. And that stuck with me when he said that, because that's how I felt all my life. I felt intellectually intimidated on everything. And I've never felt like I'm clever enough to speak about anything. But when it comes to this issue, we know what a man and a woman is. And we know that can't be changed. So it's not complicated. It's not complex. It's not intellectual or academic, as you say. It's real and it's real life. And you don't have to be super clever and read up to just be able to go, my kid's a boy, fuck off, don't chop him up.
Yeah, and I used to prosecute fraud cases, and I can tell you with your average fraud, the very first thing a fraudster does to unsteady people is take a simple transaction. So like, I'm going to sell you some shares in, I don't know, gold or whatever, in gold holdings somewhere in a warehouse. And then they complicate it. They say, it might look simple, but actually it's very complicated. I'll sell you the share, but actually it's a share in a series of shares. But you don't want just that one, I'll upsell it. Yeah, go.
Children do this. Yeah. They say, I need to brush my teeth before I go to bed. Then they brush their teeth. Then they go, I need a glass of water. Then they have a glass of water. And actually, I need to. What was that? I need to watch TV. What?
Yeah,
I need
no, I
to
don't think so, mate.
watch Postman Pat on TV.
Yeah.
Is it kind of like that where it starts off with something little? Yes, okay, you can brush your teeth. Yes, okay, you can have a glass of water. Then all of a sudden they're watching Postman Pat at 11 o'clock at night.
Just notice how often, if you watch the YouTube videos of gender ideologues like Riley
Doozer
Dennis,
does. I don't.
Doozer
watches them and tells me about them afterwards.
Watch Magdalene Burns dismantle Riley Dennis.
Oh,
One of the things.
Yes, I used to. I haven't
he
watched one of her videos in so long.
Oh, she's wonderful. One of the things he says an awful lot is it's complicated. People think gender is simple, but it's much more complicated. People who are telling you that simple things are complicated are trying to con you. What they're trying to do,
and also they're trying to. It's a cop out. They're trying to get out of it as well.
Yeah,
because I've had people say to me, "Oh, I don't understand all that stuff. It's too complex." And I just think you're just getting out of having to say something about it because you see how I get treated. Yeah,
it's not that bloody complex. It's not complex to say that there are two biological sexes. It's not complex to say that they are immutable. It's not complex to say you cannot change your sex. You can invert your penis. You can take on secondary sex characteristics of females, but every cell in your body will have male chromosomes in it. You will be a facsimile of a woman. You will not be a biological woman.
I think
that is
people
simple,
get caught out, don't they? They get caught out when somebody says, "Oh yeah, but what if they're what if a man has a female brain, or what if he feels like a woman inside?" And
that makes no sense.
And I don't think it makes sense. I think that's supernatural thinking. You might as well say to me, "Well, how comes we never see bumblebees that are ghosts?" That's one of my reasonings on ghosts, right? We never see a cat that is a ghost. It's always Napoleon or Queen Victoria or something.
I never thought of that. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
You never see ghost bumblebees.
That sort of whataboutery happens with the trans issues. It's always, well, what about intersex, or what about PCOS, which is apparently also intersex now, and things like that. And that's just, it doesn't make sense to me to have those supernatural conversations unless you're having that conversation for fun. Not that intersex is fun, but I'm saying that those conversations are like intellectual going to the gym, sort of like trying to
it's like
do something
it's just nonsense. It's like
intellectual games. It's not going to the gym. It's intellectual games. It's just like bullshit. Chess playing.
Exactly. It's bourgeois bullshit. It's undergraduate common room, junior league debating. Intersex.
Normal people don't talk like that, and I know that because I've got a normal family, and they don't talk like that.
So, for example, intersex, DSD are differences of sexual development as between the two sexes, right?
Yes.
Most DSD conditions are specific to one or other of the sexes. So that's that one out the way. The idea that you can have a bit of your body that is female, so a female brain, but you cannot test for it. So
but if you can have a female brain, why can't you have a female liver or a female kidney?
If it's in your skull, how is it female if you're male? I mean, come on.
It doesn't make sense anyway. Like, do you have one male lung and one female lung?
It's just nonsense. It's absolute nonsense.
So that's why I don't engage in those sort of conversations online. Like, I think I did when I first started talking about this because I felt like I had to, because I knew a lot of people were watching and wondering why I'm even saying that men are not women. Yeah. So I felt like I owed it to the people around me and people around Dooz. And I also was trying to preserve Dooz's reputation a little bit as well. So I was kind of reasonable. I thought I was really reasonable when I first started talking about this, but I've been reading my Facebook memories, and no, I was a gobby bitch. I wasn't that reasonable. I think I'm more reasonable now, but I think the only reason I'm more reasonable now is because I don't entertain the discussion at all.
Now, I looked back and I was a total cow.
No, I wasn't horrible to anyone. I just said it how it was. People would be like, "Oh, but what about trans women?" And I'd be like, "Men are not women," and that's it. I wouldn't even. Oh, but what about intersex? This isn't a conversation I'm willing to have.
Like, but I'm really glad that you held that line, though, particularly given you're straight, because this has big bloody implications for us gay people, because the first people that got hit by this and got hit hard were lesbians. And the minute handmaidens or Vichy gays on Twitter say trans women are women, the next thing that happens is lesbians are getting chucked off their dating apps.
Yes. And
for saying, I only want females. So it's important that you guys hold the line, and thank you for doing it.
Well, thank you as well. Because I was going to say, I don't think I would have even thought about the lesbian side of it if it wasn't for Magdalene Burns.
Yeah.
Because she came at it, she's lesbian, she's woman. So she didn't just come at it as like, this is what a woman is. She came at it as, this is what a woman is and this is what a lesbian is. And you can all fuck off with your penises.
Absolutely. Leave lesbians alone.
It's not that I wouldn't have thought about it at all, because let's be honest, the women online that were shouting about it the most first were lesbian women.
Yeah.
So it's not that I wouldn't have thought about it. I think I don't know, because when I came into it just sort of like, why is this man having a go at me for saying that men can't have PCOS? That's weird. And then I got into it, and then it was the lesbians and the women, the lesbian women and women that were the first ones. So I very much saw it as just a women's issue at first, but now I see it as an everybody issue because it fucking affects everybody.
Yeah, well, as I've said before, I think we're in stage 2 of the gender wars. Stage 1 was the public realizing there was a conflict between women's rights and trans rights, and I think sport really broke the back of that.
Yeah, I think so.
But it was becoming obvious with prisons and stuff anyway.
But it's a shame that the sports broke it and not the kids being sterilised.
I know,
right?
mate. I know. Because we were moaning about that from the gay male point of view. We were trying to, point out that as well. But anyway, if that's what it took, that's what it took. We are where we are, and a result is a result.
I agree.
Stage 2 is right now. We've got to show you the conflict between gay rights and trans rights. I think that's happening right now. And I think
it's a strong one.
Yeah,
because people are very, very scared of letting gays down, like being homophobic. Yeah. They don't want a homophobic society, just like we don't want a racist society.
Yeah.
So I think people are very scared of it. So I think it's going to be a big one.
Yeah, I bloody hope so, mate. I mean, I like to think that a lot of what's happening at the moment is making the point. I mean, when you've got a now disgraced trans charity, Mermaids, taking a gay charity, the LGBT Alliance, to a tribunal, I think it's very hard to say credibly, oh, there's no tension between them, because
definitely
we are very much at the stage where the other side is saying, if you say you're same-sex attracted, that's a transphobic dog whistle, because gay people can't be attracted to biological sex, they can only be attracted to genders. So I think we're crossing that, and I think what's happening with Mermaids this week, obviously at Gamers Network, we try to amplify quite a lot the homophobia inherent to gender identity ideology. Like, we're always banging on about the case of Appleby and Tavistock, where homophobia was noted as a safeguarding concern by the safeguarding lead, so much so that they sidelined her, they cancelled her, they told people not to go to her. She had, I think, 7 protected, it may have been 5, but she had a number of so-called protected disclosures where she'd raised alarms, whistleblown, about homophobia, homophobic parents coming in, Mermaids being involved, transing the gay away, which Dr. David Bell had warned about prior.
I made a sticker about that.
Yeah, it's I think that is now coming to the fore, because look, what's happening is deeply homophobic. What's happening is a lot of gay boys are camp growing up. I was a bit camp. I was pretty nerdy as well. Lots of lesbians are quite tomboy-y growing up. People would say, they use that phrase, gender non-conforming. It's not, the thing is, it's not gender non-conforming in gay society. It's perfectly normal to behave like that. But what's happening is camp boys are being told, you've got the wrong bodies, we better get you on the operating table.
Yeah,
and same for girls. And
it's disgusting.
That's the homophobia. That's the homophobia. This is what they do in Iran to people like me. Or to, I don't know, lesbians like Dr. Kerry Black or something like that. That's what they do to us.
Yeah.
They that's the choice they give us. And that's what's been important.
Do you know what? It's so privileged and sort of middle class and privileged of people to go to countries like that and say, isn't it great what they do? They're so open to trans. I've
seen trans.
I used to have a friend that do that. Yeah, no, I used to have a friend. Yeah. He went to Thailand and he went to a few of these other places, and then he came back and said, they've got loads of they call them lady boys, don't they? Loads of lady boys, they're so open-minded. We need to be more like that, so progressive. And I was sitting there, this was before I had the nuts to say something like 2016, 2017. I was sitting there and I said to dudes afterwards, I went, but they hang you for being gay, or they can kill you for being gay. So it's not really progressive. No wonder they're all saying they're women.
Yeah. Well, you've got a choice, haven't you? You can either go on the operating table or you can go to the gallows. Doesn't sound very bloody. Doesn't sound progressive to me, mate.
We're essentially doing that to kids, right? Because they can either go on puberty blockers or operating table, or not have the love of their parents, which, because a kid's going to see it that way. And some of these parents are like that. I am convinced that some of these parents won't love their kid if the kid is gay, but will love them if it's trans.
Well, Susie Green, the CEO of Mermaids, basically said in her TED talk that her homophobic husband couldn't handle having a camp boy.
This is the conclusion I came to when I
16th birthday. He was castrated. Now,
terrible.
In any normal society, that person, to my mind, would be a pariah, and you might think that the gay charities might have something to say about that. They don't.
Yeah. And what was there? There was Susie Green, and then that I Am Jazz. One of them took, Jazz Jennings. One of the mums took the piss out of the fact that their penis didn't develop after being on puberty blockers.
That was Susie Green. Quote, "There wasn't much to work with," and then laughed.
Yeah, that's disgusting.
That's because her child's genitals had been atrophied by the chemicals that are used to chemically castrate paedophiles. So she's having a good laugh about underdeveloped male genitals. This is what
I can't stand, because it's not just that. It's not just the sterilising. It's not just the mutilation. It's how does that psychologically affect the kid? Because at 15, 13, 14, 15 upwards, even I would say from maybe 7 or 8 onwards, my parents never saw my body, because you start to get a sense of autonomy and you want to dress yourself and things like that, right? I can't remember exactly what age that happens, but it was quite young. So I don't understand why his mum was even seeing his genitals at that age anyway. And then there was a story about her having to, after the operation, having to go in and make sure he dilates and things like that. And I'm like,
that's Jazz Jennings.
Why? But why is your mum involved in this? This is so weird.
It's this rather incestuous. It's kind of weird Munchausen's preoccupation with the genitalia of the child, and then they have the nerve to turn around and say, "You're obsessed with the genitals of your kid." So we're not the ones saying, if he doesn't dilate, this is Jazz Jennings' mother, I'm going to smack him or something. I mean, this is. I agree with Professor Camille Paglia that if you connive at disturbing the pubertal development of a child, you are complicit in a crime against humanity. And for that monster Green, and I don't want to focus just on her, because there's a father involved here as well. We shouldn't forget that.
But it does seem like the women are more vocal in this. It does seem
but there's 2 parents here, and he's driving the homophobia. So let's not cut him out of the picture as well.
Well, with Susie Green's story, I would argue that he's homophobic, and she's offering their child as the sacrificial flesh to be able to stay with him and have the family. That's the sacrifice. She's sacrificing the child for him.
Yeah.
So they're as bad as each other.
And we've ended up with a boy who has gone through an experience I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy.
I agree.
And precisely the same with Jazz Jennings. There's an episode with Jazz Jennings where there's a hypnotism, and in the hypnotism, little Jazz says, "Oh, I dreamed that I've grown up and I'm a gay man and my parents don't love me."
Yeah, I read that, and it really upsets me.
Well, there it is. There it is. It is all there. And the tragedy is, and I really feel this when I watch Jazz Jennings, Jazz is a nice little person who is so desperate to do anything to court the love of the parents and family. Jazz is a decent little human being. And Jazz is now a reality TV project. And every now and then on reality TV, it is punctuated by, when we left the hospital, Jazz had a very serious bleed. And we're not just talking scratching your knee.
This is an internal bleed, isn't it?
We're talking kind of stuff that could bloody kill you. And I look at that.
But like Jazz is like,
think,
what? He's got to be like, what, a 19, 18, 19, maybe 20-year-old boy. And he should be out. He should be in college or university. He should be
a handsome.
He should be making friends. Man. Yeah, he should be.
That's what he should be.
I mean, admittedly, like some people will argue that off the back of this is making a lot of money and all that. But for me personally, no amount of money would be okay with doing that to someone. Well, or to myself, or he ain't done that to himself. His parents have done that to him.
Yeah, exactly. And Dr. Marcy Bowers, who was responsible for the sex change operation, which Excellensic has done a brilliant video about just how callous that was and how unusual it was.
I'll have to watch that one.
Dr. Bowers said to a minor, "Oh, you could be a porn star," which is you might think a strange thing
interesting.
For a doctor to say in those circumstances. I certainly know that Genevieve Gluck, I imagine, would have a lot to say about that with all the research she's done with W-Path and these sorts of characters and precisely what
there's crossover with that, with the pushing of pornography onto kids as well as pushing this onto kids. It's all connected.
It's all come from pornness. You look at AGPs, you look at their aesthetic. None of them dress like middle-aged women. None of them are going to look like your mum. Right? None of them do that. You look at the trans men.
You look at Eddie Izzard.
Well, look at the age of the clothing that he wears in terms of what would be age appropriate.
If a woman his age was to wear that, she'd be
slaughtered,
bullied in the streets. People would laugh at her. People chuck things at her. People would be fucking nasty to her. She wouldn't be in politics. She wouldn't be being taken seriously. She wouldn't get on TV. She'd be seen as the local nutter.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's crazy.
It's a porn aesthetic. You see the same with trans men.
Yeah.
Look
I have
amazed how many trans men are into pornography.
Who was it? Was it Benji that used to be on Graham Linehan's show? Benji said about young girls that are watching gay man porn because apparently it's less violent than the straight porn. We don't have this. Yeah, straight porn apparently has a lot of strangulation and stuff. Yeah, I don't know nothing about porn, but from what I heard, there's like romantic storylines in gay man porn, and I think it appealed to the girls a little. Well, this is something Benji said, but it may be something about it being less violent, less.
Well, I certainly know that the Japanese pornography or porn comic called yaoi or yaoi, I don't know what it's called, but in any event, it has these quite romanticized male attraction. So it reduces the gay male experience to a porn category. Surprising that, isn't it? I mean, we thought lesbians might relate to that because they might understand. It's happening to us now, guys. You've been a porn category, now it's us. And they write these great big long stories about men, and the men sit around and talk about their feelings and stuff. So it's not recognizably.
I can see why this is appealing to girls.
Exactly. Well, it's written by girls.
Have to watch straight porn.
It's written. that's probably true actually, because one of the things I hear with straight porn is that there's an awful lot of strangulation, and it's interesting to me that
I've never seen it.
Well, we are seeing in Crown Courts now instances of death or serious injury by strangulation.
And they have like
this
rough
new
defense,
exactly.
didn't they? Yeah, disgusting.
Now, when I started at the bar, which is going back some time, that's 2003, there was no such thing as a rough sex defense. If someone had said in a rape trial in 2003, 2004, I was strangling her because we like rough sex, the judge would say to the jury, well, you better convict this bloke.
And also, it don't matter whether she likes rough sex or not. You killed her.
Yeah. And also, how have we got to a point where strangling your sexual partner is normal? That's
do you know
normal.
what? There's a little bit of it going on in like TV and films now as well. Like I saw something on Netflix. I can't remember what it was, so I don't want to say what it is because I mixed everything up in my head when I've watched too many things in one go. But when I was ill, I watched about 3 different series.
Yeah.
But there was a scene where the man gets the woman by the throat, pushes her up to the wall. They're having like some sort of confrontation. And then when he gets her up the throat and pushes her up against the wall, it's suddenly turned into a sexy moment.
Yeah, lovely.
And I was like, this isn't normal. If somebody had me up by the throat up against a wall, it wouldn't turn me on.
Yeah.
That's weird. Yeah. But they're presenting it as if like this is normal and this is kind of like a sexy thing and this turns people on. This is what couples do. And it ain't.
No, it's not. And, you know, let's take a step back. Where are we now? Every kid has got access to the entire internet on their phone when they go to school. If they want to watch precisely the video you've just spoken about, they can. Yeah. And suddenly we have a generation where porn saturated anime avatar porn makes people disconnected because they connect with it's particularly bad for men because men are more visual. They connect with the visuals. They don't connect with the people. And then when they start writing about sex and sexuality, it becomes very clear very quickly they've had very little. And when they explode into having sex, surprise, surprise, if it isn't informed by a visual language of that which has saturated them, namely pornography. And that's a huge danger. I would never describe myself previously as anti-porn, but I think I'm going that way.
I am that way. And I don't have any qualms in saying that. I'm anti-porn just because of the aspect of like back in the day, I say back in the day as if I was there, I weren't there, but back in the day, people would just make their own like home videos and share them about and stuff like that. That I don't really have much of an opinion on because that's shit you're doing, you're just doing. But it's the industry aspect of it that I don't like. People are going to do what they do regardless in their own homes, but the industry aspect of it, putting it out there, and then your algorithm is aiming it at audiences, so then you've got it like to where kids can access it and things like this. And then the other side that I don't like about porn is that you can't guarantee that what you're watching is actually consented to and that it's actually legal. You can't guarantee that's not a child. That happened to Rose, I think her name's Rose Kembler. I might be saying that wrong, but I did a picture about her against Pornhub. And that happened to her. She got snatched off the streets. She obviously got assaulted. And then it got sold on Pornhub. That shouldn't be okay. That shouldn't be legal. But then when I talk to men about it, my argument is that you don't know that that's not her you're watching. That could be anyone you're watching. So I'm not opposed to people getting off on watching people have sex necessarily. I'm opposed to the industry.
Yeah, I have a I have a philosophical objection or observation to it.
Ooh, I want to hear this.
Well, which is this. I'm probably building that up to be more impressive than it's actually going to be. But we observed a while ago that gender is not a youth movement and that it is top down. And it occurs to me these days you will probably find more young people who have OnlyFans accounts than who are members of little bands or little plays, little play groups, or something, putting on plays or something like that, or poetry groups.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I've always said that gender is a moribund, empty, desolate cultural aesthetic flesh cult. And it fails because the aesthetics it produces are really ugly, and it only produces anime and it only produces porn. And I just wonder what a life carved and shaped by these cultural forces looks like when you get to university and you've got your OnlyFans account where you can monetize your masturbation, but you're not part of, I don't know, a little music group. That seems to me is a diminution in the cultural life of what's going on. Because if you look at the artistic output of gender, it's minimal. It doesn't make poets. It doesn't make plays. It doesn't make poetry.
They don't like artists. They don't like musicians.
Look at the disaster they've had in the Globe today with their absolutely on-the-nose, blunt-forcing Joan of Arc. And they put up a poem which basically said, "Fuck you, TERFs," or something like that. And I watched
today. I've got a Joan of Arc.
They had to remove it.
I need to put that up tomorrow.
And then there's a non-binary Joan of Arc talking about being genderqueer or whatever. And
she talked a fucking lot about being a woman, I'll tell you that.
Well, quite. But you watch it, and do you know what? It's guilty of the worst sin that art is capable of. It's dull. It's flat. It's uninteresting.
It's boring, and
it doesn't move the human spirit.
And
because it comes from bureaucracy.
It's not just gender identity, though. It's the politicizing of everything. Because I said to dudes a couple of years ago, before pandemic, we were at festivals just after I'd been cancelled the first time. So I was still venturing out, brave warrior that I am.
Your second regeneration.
I got cancelled twice. The second one was killer. But
good on you, mate.
The first cancellation, we were on tour, and we were at festivals, and I remember saying to dudes, if one more fucking musician or band gets up on that stage and basically sings or lectures us in between the songs of basically everything he puts in his Facebook statuses every day about Brexit or whatever, then I'm walking away. I've had enough of this music. I just want to hear music that is just music. That music is meant to be an escape. You're meant to get away from everything. You're meant to have fun. Now, I know I'm a hypocrite saying that because I do a lot of art about what's going on with this, and art is meant to be an escape as well. So maybe I'm hypocritical in saying that, and I'll have a little think about that.
I don't think you are, because art works if it connects to you, and it animates some element of your humanity.
Yeah, it's different to going to a festival, because you go to a festival, you go to a gig, you want to have a good time. And I remember, this is a little tiny bit off topic, but I remember an interview I heard about with Post Malone. You know Post Malone with all the tattoos on his face. I love him. Yeah. And he did an interview where I think they were having a go at him because he had cornrows, and they were having a go at his style of music and saying that he's like culturally appropriating, and then they tried to have a go at him for not being political in his songs, and he said something to that effect of, why would I sing about politics when I'm just trying to escape? I'm escaping into my music. I want other people to escape with me, sort of thing. I'm paraphrasing. He might not have even said it like that, but that's a few years ago he said that, and I've always remembered that because that's how I feel about it. And there's a lot of that going on. There's like you say, these people are not joining theatre groups or joining bands, or they might be joining bands, but they're joining bands to talk about being trans.
Well, quite. I mean, I think art can and often does have political origins and political messages. I write lots and lots and lots of poems, primarily about homosexual male love. They're great. You'll love them.
Wait, you're a poet?
Yeah. I've got loads.
I did not know about this.
Well, I mean, it's putting it a bit high to say I'm a poet. I mean, I've tried my hand at it. But the point is, the reason I started writing those was when I entered the gender wars, and people were very down on homosexuality and were saying, no, you should be homogendered and you should follow the Stonewall thing. I want to say, no, here is the case for the beauty, the love, and the joy of men loving each other. This is why it can be wonderful. So it can have a political aspect, but the point is, if it's one, well executed, two, if it speaks to people at a level, three, if it's heartfelt, it will ordinarily speak to people at a level, as long as it is not obvious, vulgar, dim, pedestrian. I think the same is true of your art. I think it's animated by similar political desires within the context of this debate, and it does speak to people. That is very, very different to standing up on stage and saying, I'm Joan of Arc, call me they, them. I mean, couldn't be more fucking obvious. You just say, oh, spare me. I just can't. I'm so bored by you people. I'm so bored by gender.
If you want to sell gender identity to an audience in a theatre, why not write a new play about somebody who's a they, them? Why do you have to take somebody who's already existed?
Well, there's a reason
who didn't identify into this.
There's a reason for that, and the reason is you cannot write a good play about a they, them, and the reason you cannot is it's a load of bourgeois bullshit, because people say non-binary identities.
Write a bourgeois bullshit play about it.
Quite, but the point is, it would be a bad play, you know. Trans men are women, trans men are men, non-binary identities are valid. The most egregious lie in all of that is the final clause.
I'll make the play then.
And the first two are pretty bad because they defy scientific reality. But non-binary is a heap of bourgeois luxury bullshit. Which basically means I've got a bad haircut and I would like some attention, and I am executing and I'm executing androgyny very much less effectively than Grace Jones or David Bowie did. That's
me all over.
That's all non-binary means. You won't get a non-binary play, because a good play, and the reason you won't is you cannot build a castle. You can't build a castle on sand.
Yeah, there's no substance to it.
Exactly. There's no intellectual substance. And in fact, it's worse than that. It's incoherent. What makes you non-binary? Oh, well, I either have a male or a female gender identity. Right. What's a male gender identity?
Did I tell you how I got done on the internet? People were having a go at me on Facebook. Or so, I say people. One person, one loser had a go at me.
Yeah.
Because I'm apparently appropriating non-binary culture.
And
I'm stealing from the people that I have oppressed.
How are you
they
doing
said
that?
It's because of my glasses and haircut.
Oh, fuck.
So I'm appropriating non-binary culture.
That's outrageous.
I was like, fuck off, I've had this haircut since I was about 15, you know. Well, on and off, admittedly. I've switched genders along the way quite a few times.
Isn't that wonderful, though? Because aren't you allowed to say to them at that point, are you not thereby admitting that non-binary is a haircut and a pair of glasses?
Right, exactly that. And then I found out later that this person has something to do with the people that cancelled me, because the people that cancelled me were then slagging me off for not having any of it when this person told me I was appropriating non-binary culture. And I just thought it was really funny. Not that this topic really is funny, like we said earlier, there's very serious sides to it, but these sort of encounters do make me laugh.
You've got to find the laughs, though, mate, because you don't find the laughs, you'll go mad in this.
I think, a lot of us were already mad before this happened anyway.
You might be right there, actually. I was certainly well on my way, mate. I think this just got me over the edge.
I lived in a van for 7 years. Do you think, like, definitely weren't going to do anything normal with my life?
That's the life of an artist,
I'll get away with it for being an artist. I think if I said I lived in a van for 7 years, but I don't do anything creative, then I'll probably be weird. But because I'm an artist, I'm allowed to do mental things.
Yeah, exactly. You could let out on this, mate. You could let out on this. Roll with it.
I don't even say it like that. I just say that we were on tour, because there's a musician. So I'm like, we were on tour for 7 years, which is true. We were on tour for 7 years. We just didn't stop. Just do this mental thing all the time, no breaks.
Love it, mate.
Good fun. I was going to say as well, what got you into this fight particularly? Like, because to me, it looks like you came out of nowhere.
Yes, I tell you what, would you mind awfully if I grabbed another beer and then ask me the question again, and we'll do a cut?
I'll cut this out and do a little break.
Thanks, mate.
Early in the morning, as the sun comes up, I just wanna have a cup. There's one drink, that's the one for me. Won't you please make me a cup of tea?
Right, are we still recording?
Yep, we're recording now, and we've just had a pee break. I didn't go anywhere because my legs hurt. That doesn't mean I peed myself, though. I just didn't pee.
You say that. I mean, you would say that, didn't you? So we don't know members of the jury. So do you want to ask your question again? So you got a clean cut?
Let's go for it. So I was going to ask how you came into this, particularly into this fight, because it seemed to me like you came out of nowhere.
Yeah, I kind of
got a little dog or a cat or something.
Yeah, that's one of my dogs. That's little Gus.
I do like dogs. I like dogs more than cats.
That's my pug, or one of my pugs, Gus.
You got a pug?
Yeah, I got two pugs.
So good.
He obviously wants to hear the answer to this.
Of course, go for it.
I got he's settled down. Otherwise, I'd pick him up. But anyway, it doesn't matter. I'd been keeping an eye on this because I'd always been a fan of sort of Suzanne Moore, Julie Burchill, Julie Bindel, and I started to notice about the time that Milo Yiannopoulos and Julie Bindel were doing panels around American universities. There's a particular tour called the Dangerous Faggot Tour, because Milo is nothing if not controversial. And they started getting no platformed, which I thought was, just crazy American universities. But then I noticed Julie Bindel started getting no platformed on pretty innocuous, quite important stuff, like, domestic violence. Like, she's very skilled in domestic violence policy. Like, she knows her statistics and stuff.
What she's done ain't no joke. She's done
absolutely
some hardcore, serious work.
Well, if you talk to her about like prisons policy and so on, and obviously I work in criminal justice, and I was at the time, she's very much worth listening to. She's very much worth listening to on prostitution and trafficking. And I started to think there's something going wrong here. There's something really odd. Then I noticed the first bit of sort of cancel culture, where Suzanne Moore said in an article something like, the problem with transsexuals is they all want to look like Brazilian prostitutes or something like that. Just sort of throwaway line, which she's apologized for since, but kind of thing that I think probably is within the bounds of free speech. But there was a massive cancellation. Julie Burchill then ran sort of friendly fire for her by writing an extraordinarily offensive article, which did draw the fire. And about that sort of time, I started watching Magdalene Burns and so on, because I wasn't really aware of this debate at all. I knew, I hadn't really kept an eye on what Stonewall were doing, and it hadn't really hit the mainstream. And the minute, I have to say, Magdalene Burns was an absolute revelation for me, because I think I watched the Alex Drummond video. I'd never seen him before. I didn't even know who this guy was. I didn't know the staff of Stonewall. I wasn't involved. I didn't think of myself as a gay activist or anything involved in gay politics. And I watched it and I was like, are you serious? This guy reckons he's a lesbian. And worse than that, he sat there going, women can fix cars, It's like, what the really? And you're employed by Stonewall? And it just got worse and worse, because the minute I went down that rabbit hole, I remember saying to my husband, we can't stay quiet about this. There's something serious going on here. And then, having watched Magdalene, I started to get a sense of what was going on with children. And at that point, I just thought, that's it. I need to devote serious time to this. This is an extraordinary. I mean, I think this is up there with lobotomies, mate. I really do. I think it's.
I agree. Serious. And do you know what? The same thing happened with lobotomies. I watched a documentary years ago before I knew about any of this, and there was I don't even know what documentary it was. I've seen so much shit, but this guy was talking about how he was against lobotomies, and he spoke out against it. He worked in these hospitals as well. He's like a psychiatrist or something.
Yeah.
And he had a very credible career behind him when he spoke out. And he essentially got cancelled. People used to write to him death threats, like actual in writing death threats, because he was against lobotomy. And I thought it was interesting because the language he used was the same. So he said that people used to say things to him like he's causing harm, or
really?
I need to find this documentary because I remember it, because when I started getting cancelled and saw this language coming up again, I've thought of this guy, because this is what this guy went through. Just
designed to close you down, that language, isn't it? To make you question yourself. He,
obviously turned out to be right years and years later, but he had to relocate his entire life. Him and his wife had to move. They had to go into hiding for years and years and years. He lost his job, all this shit. And now, if we look at lobotomies now and we go, fuck that, that's out of order, that's medieval.
Yeah, and obviously so. But then this is obvious, and I think this is the thing that gets me, once you get to the point of particularly like Tavistock and the Appleby case, the evidence puts beyond doubt that homophobia is leading to serious harm for little children. And why every gay man and every gay charity on the planet wasn't screaming from the rooftops then, I will never know. And I want some answers to that one day. And I intend it to be the case to seek them. And I'm serious about that. I'm not
when you say that, what do you mean by seek the answers? Would you ask people in your life that didn't speak up?
I probably will. Yeah, probably will. Although most people in my life are pretty on my side about this. But I do want answers. From
in general, from people.
I want answers. I want answers from the NHS. I want answers from Stonewall. I want answers from the government. And I want answers from people involved in this,
Yeah, because I worry about
children,
that. Because
those children needed a last line of defense, right? They needed a decent doctor or a decent charity, and they didn't have one. So I want to know why they didn't.
I commented on that woman's, is her name Nikki Clark? I commented on her thing. Basically, she was saying that she's changed her mind, essentially, about this stuff. And somebody else put a screenshot of her having a go at TERFs in 2019.
Yep.
And I said to her, don't you think you should at least write, if you're getting all this criticism for changing your mind, at least write a thread on what, how and why you changed your mind? Because for some people, this isn't going to look like a sincere changing of your mind. It's going to look like a convenient changing of your mind.
I agree.
And somebody pushed back on me, one of my followers pushed back and said, you know, this is dangerously close to TRA behaviour, you know, when they go through the tweets and they try and hold you publicly accountable. And so I had a little think about that today, and I've got two thoughts that I'm torn between. One of them is that I don't want to repeat this behaviour that got us into this situation in the first place. So when this is over and we win, because we will win, and we stop fucking kids up, we can't then perpetuate the witch hunts and the cancel culture. But the other problem I've got is that people who are willing to lie about this or pretend it didn't happen or try and save their own skin are also willing to participate in this again. And I don't want to allow that to happen either. And I said to you earlier as well, anyone that has ever been associated with me and Do's in any sort of way, who have either participated in us being cancelled or stayed quiet, whether that sounds fair or not, I don't want anything to do with them ever. There's no reconciling with me. There's not. You can't even, at a gig, you're welcome to the gig, obviously, because we don't control who comes in and out of venues. But you can't even look at me or speak to me. I won't have anything to do with you. I won't even go near you. You come up to me, I'll walk away. And that's, I don't want anything to do with anyone that's kept quiet on this or anything. And I don't care whether that's fair or not, because some people keep quiet for legitimate reasons, legitimate, debatable. But some people do have reasons. Like, for example, I do have some friends that are on my side that have to keep quiet because of their job. But it's not like, oh, I have to keep quiet because of my job at McDonald's. Not that keeping your job at McDonald's wouldn't be important, because that's an income and you need your income. Yeah, but their job is an important one that plays an important role in society that they need to keep. And we need people like that. For example, people that work in schools or NHS or in the police, things like that. We need those people. We need them in those positions to fight back on this when the time's right for them.
But it's remarkable they have to stay quiet. I mean, that's a dangerous thing.
It seems to me like the more important. It seems like to me the more important the job is, the more the pressure is for them to keep quiet in the environment they're in.
Yeah, but you know what? If no one speaks up, this will go on forever. And
that's
the problem. It does require people to speak up, and brave people have spoken up, and we have to speak up. And I don't care how important your job is. If it's an anonymous tweet, if it's a conversation somewhere, do something. We have to do something. This functions on cowardice. It functions on fear. It works on fear. It's an authoritarian movement. You can only make people repeat and believe nonsense if you scare them. No one believes half of this nonsense, but they're too scared to speak the truth. We have to speak up. And just to the point you just made, I don't see that there is any equivalence whatsoever in you and anyone else saying, well, you were calling us TERFs a minute ago. And the reason there is no equivalence between that is you are not cancelling them. They will not lose a job.
Yeah, that is true.
They will not face consequences. What they are doing, is they're smelling the way the wind goes. Very well, you're on our side. That's expedient for us. That's useful for us. I'll take it as far as it goes, but I won't bloody trust you as far as I could spit you. So there is no comparison between that person a few years ago calling someone TERFs. I also note that she took a swipe at Graham Linehan, who I think
called him a bully, didn't she?
Who has been vindicated, who is owed a massive apology. There's no equivalence. So it's not good enough for people to turn around and say, oh, you're being just like them. No, I'm not, because they're not about to lose their job. They're not about to get cancelled. What I'm doing, and this is important and this is fair, is to say for all of you lot who called whoever it was at the time, or called Kathleen Stock, an evil turf or whatever,
or J.K. Rowling.
We will not forget what you put them through. We won't forget it. And I'm sorry, I'm not a forgiving man by nature, and I have no mercy and no forgiveness for these people. And
I'm like that with people we know, but I don't feel like I necessarily have the right to extend that to people I don't know or who haven't done anything to me personally, because I don't, like I said, I don't want to perpetuate witch hunts and cancel culture.
Sure,
but you've made a really, really good point that I'm not cancelling these people if I just say, you need to explain yourself.
You're not cancelling, and you're also entitled to say in any debate, look, when I estimate just how valuable your support is to a cause, when I think about how valuable you are as an ally, as they say these days, I'm entitled to look at the fact you're a massive hypocrite who has changed your mind just as the wind is blowing.
You're flight risk.
And I'm entitled to say that you appear to be one of the cowards, and this appears to be the flight of the cowards. Yeah. And that seems to me to be doing no more than having an honest accommodation with the truth. Now, political realities and expedience will tell us there are times when you want to do that and times when you don't want to do it. But my goodness me, I notice certainly the gay males in these categories who've done this, and I notice very carefully the ones who I would and would not count as allies. And that's a
do you know what? I don't like the word allies either.
No, I don't. I hate it.
I think it's such a grubby word.
I agree, but it's just like one of those words that's bubbled up, isn't it?
But also it's got into our society in a way, because I think people are now more interested in having allies than friends, and that's such a lonely way to live.
It's also really patronizing. I was saying this with my husband the other day. It's like, when I go to work as a gay bloke, I don't want to have allies. Like, every straight person I know at work is delightful and we get on. And do you know what? They get on with Dennis. They don't get on with a gay man as an ally.
Yeah. But also, it's war talk. And I don't like everything being war talk either. I don't like that. I just like, why can't I just have friends? I often talk in war metaphors. So. Yeah, but you do it. You probably do it more eloquently than most people.
Well, I'm not sure.
You seem to be good with words.
Well, mate, lawyers. So I'm good at two things in life: words and men. But that's
excellent.
About it. Yeah.
Very good.
Can I run the question back on you? Because actually, I was just going to finish off my peaking story to say that I only hit Twitter at the beginning of 2019. I like to think I exploded onto it. I'm 2 bands down, but now Mr. Musk is here. Who knows? Maybe I'll get my 3rd regeneration. Maybe John Pertwee will step out the TARDIS soon. Say hello to the gender Borg. I'm sure they've missed me. Tell me your peaking story. What happened with you? Was this this in the music scene, or was there something in particular?
Yeah, no, it was on Facebook. I've told this story a few times, so I'll try not to look bored while I'm telling it, because it's not a boring story. But I was on Facebook. I got diagnosed with PCOS. I knew I had it for years, but I got diagnosed with it. And I did what good old Lefty does on Facebook in those days. And you tell everyone about it. I didn't tell everyone everything, but I told people about it. But I did it in a certain way. And I said, this is a status for women and girls. This is a female issue. And this was before I really knew about any trans stuff. So I was just putting it out there. These are the symptoms to look for. These are the things you have to go through. It takes a very long time to get diagnosed with PCOS. Same with endometriosis. And they're both really debilitating, very, very serious issues to live with. And they do have, it's not just about the pain, it's the mental health aspect, it's the physical, going to the gym saved my life on this. But so I put that.
So is that why you go to the gym so much then? I didn't realise that.
No, I started going to the gym because of I've got other health issues going on, like the breathing and the asthma and all that. And that started a few years ago. And then it got worse during lockdowns because I was just sitting around eating crisps. And then I started going to the gym. But it seemed to have benefited me in other areas and other health issues I already had, like PCOS. PCOS is a health issue, in my opinion. And I do think women with PCOS have to do some exercise. You don't have to go to the gym because it's not for everyone, You have to do something though, and you have to look out for what you're doing with your body, because you've got extra things to look out for, like thyroid issues and all that. So some bloke off the festival scene. I didn't really know him. I let everyone add me on Facebook as well. Like, if you met me at a festival once, you could add me. And I don't do that no more. I shut that shit down. It was family only, with family and a few other people. And you.
Yeah.
And some bloke off the festival scene said, "What about trans women?" And then it all exploded. And because I was like, what are you on about, mate? This is a female thing.
Can I not post a status about myself? Does everything?
No. Can I not just talk about me? But
are we allowed to talk about women anymore?
No, we're not.
Okay.
But he said, he kicked off about trans women, and I said that it's an ovary disease, mate. You have to have ovaries, and that means you have to be female. And then he accused me of being aggressive because I wrote female in capital letters, and that I've been transphobic. And then it descended into an interrogation of some sort of whether or not I would hypothetically accept his imaginary friend, who was called Dave and now is called Danielle or something. Would I accept their new identity as a woman? And I was like...
And this is all on a post where you're saying, I'm not well and this is what's happened.
Yeah. And
great.
So I got interrogated.
And you're put through the Spanish Tranquisition. Nobody expects.
I know, I read back on it recently because it came up. I can't see everything. I've got the screenshots, but I can't see everything because obviously what happens when you block someone, there's bits missing. But I can see my responses, and I thought I used to be super polite, but actually I was very direct back then, a lot more direct than I think I am now. And I just basically said to him, number one, I don't know your hypothetical imaginary friend. And if I did,
who you just made up. Yeah.
Who you just made up. And even if I did, I still don't owe your friend any sort of recognition of whatever thing they've made up about themselves. That's pretty much how I worded it. And then I said, number two, you still have to be female to have ovaries, to have an ovary condition. And then he went off on one. He called me a Nazi. This is all in one comment.
Great.
He called me a Nazi. He called me a white supremacist. He called me a transphobe. He called me a homophobe.
Full
and then
house.
He said that he lived in South Africa for a while when there was like tension going on there, and he said that what I'm doing is worse than what white people did in South Africa.
You're PW Bertha.
And I looked at it and I was like, I don't, I'm just a girl from Essex. I don't understand all this shit.
Yeah,
like,
I think
blow
you might
my
be
mind.
going a bit high here, mate. Yeah.
So I blocked him.
Good.
I blocked him. And then I wrote a status and I was like, it's not good enough that I said I would, because I think I said I would like maybe respect his friend's pronouns, but I won't pretend his friend is a woman. I said, it's not good enough that I said that, is it? This guy's still saying that I'm worse than the people in South Africa and that I'm a Nazi. So what's the
almost
point?
like he had an agenda, right?
So I kind of knew something was up before I posted my PCOS thing, but I didn't know it was this serious. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
like I knew people doing
like
non-binary thing.
You get a feeling for it.
I think I might have shared on Facebook something about Caitlyn Jenner being a brave woman, and I just went, yay, but I didn't think anything of it. I was like, oh, whatever, that over there. And but and actually that reminded me, that's not the first time I've encountered this argument. I did repost a Caitlyn Jenner thing, and somebody had to go at me on there and said, well, what do you mean, what is a woman? And I was like, what are you talking about? He's just in my head I was going, but he's just pretending. What's the harm in that? Let him pretend if he wants to pretend. And I remember getting really frustrated because I didn't know what the woman who was questioning me, she was someone from around here, I don't know who she is, but I didn't know why she was going so hard at it. I was like, what's the big deal? If he wants to pretend, let him pretend.
That's
I thought the same
though,
as
isn't it?
transvestites.
If you're not,
that's what I thought it was.
Yeah, if you're not into this debate, though, you don't really appreciate the intensity that it could sum up. I mean, I heard
the PCOS thing got me into it.
Yeah.
When I got called a Nazi and he kicked off about the fact that I don't think that men can have this disease, I was like, fuck you. Like, fuck off. Not having this. I thought these Caitlyn Jenners were just pretending and that we didn't have to go along with it. I didn't think we had to. Yeah. So when I realised that, oh no, these people actually want me to go along with it, that's when I realised that there's something bigger going on. And then obviously I got on to the kids, like realising what they're doing to kids, and
it's really
I started watching Magdalene Burns.
Really interesting to me, though, you were speaking to a bloke there, because it strikes me that if you were speaking to like Debbie Hayton or Blair White or Buck Angel or or the trans boys from GenSpect or any number of decent trans people, they would have immediately just agreed with you. But so often you encounter these people who are the appointed saviors of the movement.
Yeah, he was just a bloke as well.
Talk about
just
here's
a straight
my hypothetical friend. It's like, well, why don't you speak to or Dr. Maria de Cruz? Why don't you speak to an actual transsexual who will?
And also,
probably
what I used to hate was
shut up.
People go, you've obviously never spoken to a real trans person.
Really?
And I remember thinking, this was back in the day, before I knew how to formulate arguments and stuff. I remember thinking, but do I have to speak to someone who says they're trans to know what a woman is? I am one. Can I just say what I am and go from there? No, my word's not trustworthy. It's not good enough. You can't trust me on what a woman is. You have to ask a bloke who says he's a woman what a woman is. That blew my mind. And then there was some people on the festival scene. There were some younger people, and these women that I don't think they ever listened to my stuff, so they won't hear this. But my God, they're terrifying. They went to university. They were lovely girls. Went to university, and all of a sudden they were full on girls pretending to be drag queens. Like all the makeup, everything. And then they started saying things to me online, because I used to put my foot in it all the time because I just didn't know. I knew something was up, but I didn't know the language. I didn't know the radical feminist stuff. I didn't know what gender identity ideology was. I didn't know queer theory. I didn't know nothing. I was just sticking my foot in it everywhere I go. And
I know the feeling, mate.
They said things to me like, oh, you don't understand what it's like to be trans. You don't understand dysphoria. You can't say anything about this topic because you're not trans. And I remember thinking, so I'm not allowed to have an opinion on it because I'm not trans. And you're assuming that I've never gone through anything like, being uncomfortable with my body and stuff like that, which with PCOS, I mean, it is a confusing thing to have, right? Because you're like 15, all your girls have got boobs and you've got a moustache. And you're like, what the fuck? Where's my boobs, man? Give me my boobs. Get rid of this,
Come on, God, what are you playing at? Is this some sort of joke?
I did get them in the end. They came late. And they came late and they came way too much. I just woke up and they were out here. I was like, holy fuck, take them back. Take them back.
This is a bit like being 13 and thinking, shit, I'm gay. This is going to be difficult.
Can't just be a normal bloke. No.
Yeah, it looks like we've played the game of life and picked hard mode.
It's like snakes and ladders, but you just keep going down the snake.
There's certainly a lot of snakes in gay life. Sorry, I won't do that joke. Joke. I know. It's
naughty. I think a lot of the women, especially that come into this, have experiences like that. Like they got PCOS, or they've had a lot of them have had things like traumatic childbirth. It's very female connected. The experiences that they've gone through that have affected them and made them step into this in some sort of way. Because I wouldn't have stepped into this if it wasn't for the PCOS thing. Or maybe I would have eventually just because I'm gobby. But it just wouldn't have happened like that.
Might have done, mate.
I might have done. Because also I was having these debates with my friends at the time, because one of them was trans. These are all people that have gone after me. They're all people responsible for cancelling me. So I'm not going to say they're my friends. They're not. But they were at the time. And one of them was trans. The other ones all identify as trans now, but didn't at the time.
Right.
That's another story. But I remember having a debate because one of them was saying, trans man was saying, the laws might be changing to make it illegal for me to, if I have a sexual partner, I'm not allowed to not tell them I'm trans. And I said, well, that's right.
Yeah.
If you have a sexual partner and you don't tell them what you are, and then they find out that you're trans and they wouldn't have had sex with you if they'd known, you've taken away their consent to say no to you in that situation. And all my friends ganged up on me and they were like, that's transphobic, that's out of order. If that person doesn't want to sleep with them because they're trans, that's transphobia. And I was like, no, that's your preferences. That's your sexual right. You can turn anyone down for any reason. So, I knew there was tension developing back then. This was like 2017. We had this argument in real life. We weren't online. We were in real life. We were at a gig, and I remember it getting a bit icy. So I just left them to it for a little while. Went and had to drink by myself. But it's like I knew then that there were tensions around it, and I didn't have the language that I've got now. So I was just speaking plainly. And I think actually I've gone back to just speaking plainly quite a lot of the time because it's easier.
I think it helps.
I tried to do a bit I tried to educate myself. I tried to be a bit more articulate. And I don't think there's anything wrong with trying to be more articulate in what you're saying. But at the end of the day, you just need to speak plainly. You just need to say what you mean. Well,
at the end of the day, what we're talking about are really simple truths.
Yeah.
And do you know what? Sometimes you can embroider, embellish, and sort of zhuzh up your language, but you might just be obfuscating. You might just be concealing the truth, because I can call it top surgery all I like, but it is a radical double mastectomy.
Yes, it is.
It is an amputation.
And I know women that have had them double mastectomy because of breast cancer, and it's really affected them. And it's not a joke. It's a really big deal. The complications can be really serious. There's long-lasting effects, and it really makes me angry that there's young women just doing this as if it's like a little bit of lip filler.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, I think plain language is actually what this debate badly needs, because so much of this is a bourgeois language game, you know?
I think that's why my non-binary is bullshit sticker winds people up the most. That's the one I've had the most shit for. Is that one?
But it's a wonderfully straightforward thing, and it's no different to what we've been saying. And as we've opined up to this point, what is non-binary? Non-binary is a status that's entirely dependent on sexual stereotypes.
It's a haircut and glasses.
Exactly. It's entirely dependent on saying, oh, I don't feel like Action Man or Barbie. Well, welcome to having a personality.
Yeah, welcome to not being boring.
Yeah, you know, most people.
And if you're weird,
you're
a weird person, like I've always been a weird person, even though I don't try to be weird. I try
back at you, mate. I get that a lot myself.
When I was younger, I tried desperately not to be weird, and it just made me weirder. So I've just leaned into it.
It's like performance pressure, mate. Yeah. You're like, don't be weird. Ah!
Deza said that about me as well when he first met me as well, and like it was kind of like
that you were a weirdo.
And my friends, my friends said it to him as well. Like, I'm one of those people that tries not to be weird, but I am. So I'm just leaning into it as I get older.
My husband's nickname for me for years was Weirdo Boy, so don't worry.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Don't worry. He's Australian, though. They say stuff like that. So,
Australians are weird and all.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree. Let's hope he doesn't watch this.
But I just think, like, if you're weird and you're growing up in this, you're pretty fucked, because you're getting told that you have to fit into this like Barbie or Action Man box. And that ain't happening. Like with someone like me, if I was growing up in this, I think I would have fallen for it. I think I would have gone for Action Man, because it's easier than Barbie.
Absolutely. How many people would have fallen for this bloody stuff? And you know,
me,
what a cruel thing it is to visit on children with all the insecurities and the uncertainties, and you know, just how terrifying adolescence can be. What a horrible
It's not
thing.
even that, like younger than that as well. I think we're giving children anxiety and other problems from this. Because like my nieces and nephews, they're normal kids and they've got normal good parents and a stable home life, like a lovely home life. And I've learned a lot from watching them about how not normal my upbringing was. Does that make sense? Because I'm looking at them and I'm like, they're normal. This is how kids should behave. I didn't behave like that when I was a kid. I was full of anxiety. I was thinking all the time. I was introverted, and I was not at the same time. I'm still like that, introverted and not at the same time. But normal kids don't sit around worrying about whether they're in the wrong body or not. And we're making kids, or not us, but these fuckers are making kids sit around worrying about making their body right so that they can be socially accepted. And it's crazy. They should be.
It's evil. It's evil.
It is evil.
It's
the,
evil.
The worst
you
thing they should be
were born
worrying
in
about.
the wrong body. We're going to surgically correct you. And you can tell
crazy.
if it's the wrong body by staring at your smartphone, which will bombard you with a torrent of images,
They
torrent
shouldn't
of
even have a
social media.
smartphone.
I agree. And pornography. And if you don't look like that, you can't fit into these categories. And, this is evil to do this to children.
To children, it really is. Because like when we have our nieces and nephews over, they all have an iPad, but their iPads don't come out of their suitcases when they're around ours. We haven't set that as a rule because we knew that if we set that as a rule, they'll think about it. So what we've done is we've just distracted them with activities from the minute they're here till the minute they go home. And they don't have a care or a worry in the world when they're with us, or even when they're at home either. They're most worrying about is making sure that one of them doesn't get more ice cream than the other one. That's sort of like the injustices between siblings, making sure you all get treated fairly and so-and-so's got more Smarties than me and all this. That's the things they're worried about. They're not worried about...
It's a good thing to distract them with, actually.
There's what?
It's a good thing to distract them with. Just unevenly distribute the Smarties. And then
just things like that. Like when they were around there last time, we spent I think it was an hour we spent on Doritos. I put all the Doritos, all different flavors, in a big bowl, and then the kids held a Dorito up, and I could tell them what flavor it is.
That's impressive.
And I don't even have to taste it. They taste it and they tell me if I'm right, and I was right every single time. I was never wrong. I've eaten that many Doritos. I know what they look like.
Psychic.
they were so impressed. They think it's like the best thing ever.
I could do the cheese ones. I can pick out the cheese ones.
Could you? Because it's a little bit more orangey, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I'd go for.
Yeah. No, I can tell exactly what flavour the Dorito is. And that was the best thing. And I can't stand the thought that there's people out there that have got kids that they're not doing nonsense shit like that, just wasting time. Because when you're a kid, you can waste time. When you're an adult, you've got to worry about things. So when they're children, let them waste that time doing stupid shit or playing games or learning to... I thought my niece and nephews have all been painting. I haven't got the painting up here, but we've got a massive canvas for them. And they've been doing a group painting where they all add bits to it and that. And every time they come around, something gets added to it.
That's lovely.
Stuff like that. It drives me nuts, the thought that somebody's sitting down with their kids and going, so Timmy or whatever, Timmy, what do you feel like on the inside? What's your gender identity? I can't imagine having conversations like that with kids because it just seems too abstract.
I agree. And to your point, and I think it's a really good point, does it not become a sort of neurotic conspiracy where parent and child sit around and connive, and it's the parents doing it, this kind of Munchausen-y crime against humanity where you focus precisely on this, as I say, neurotic, obsessive concern with identity, with the parent seeking to maintain and tinker with it for validation for them as good parents. So once they get the right answer, they say, and at the same time, there's tremendous pressure on the children. And as you say, if you compare that as against, watch Auntie Birdie guess the flavor of the Dorito. Like, one thing is fun and one thing is harmless and one thing is the sort of thing a kid should be doing. The other thing is dangerous alchemy, because you are mixing with the reagents of the soul there. And God, what these poor kids going to be like when they grow up, mate?
I don't like the thought of kids
my parents were
overthinking
endlessly
shit like
talking
that.
to me about my pronouns or whatever.
Yes. And it's the overthinking. I don't personally, my personal opinion, it really depends on the personality of the kid though. But I don't think they should be pushed or encouraged to overthink on anything. I think they should just live in the moment and be children.
There's
but some children are more thoughtful and articulate. Like my niece, my oldest niece, she's starting to want to sit down and talk to me a lot more. And my God, 11-year-olds are boring. But but we're starting to develop I didn't mean that horribly. I really didn't. It's just...
Let's hope she doesn't have YouTube. Okay? Your auntie didn't mean that. Okay.
No,
She
I didn't mean it.
that.
I didn't mean it horribly. I just mean it as in like my brain goes off on a million things at once. I like these sort of conversations, but I can't have this conversation with a child. I'm able to recognize that there's boundaries and that of appropriateness. I can't have a political conversation with a child, even if, or a cultural conversation, even if it's one of the most interesting things to me to talk about ever.
Sure.
I have to talk about what the child wants to talk about because that's their world and that's their worldview, and I'm getting an insight into that. And it could be like
Minecraft or something. And
I mean, the last conversation we had was about her dad's tattoos, and she was basically telling me that some of mine are rubbish and I need to get them redone. Fine.
Thanks.
Thanks. We
I do love that I should
cover them up with.
I love that kids. They're just like, this is what I think of your life.
I don't mind, but I could never imagine imposing a conversation like that on a kid as well and being like, right, okay, now I think we should talk about whether you feel okay in your body.
It's a lot of pressure.
When would that ever come up?
It's a lot of pressure.
It is, isn't it? I don't even ask like, I ask how the kids are, obviously, but I don't ask them how they're feeling. They'll tell me if they're feeling something, usually in some way or other.
There's going to be a lot to come out about this, because when you think about it, how does that conversation start? You imagine a little boy who's a bit camp playing with dolls or something. How does the conversation start? Does it start with the parents saying, "Are you sure you're a boy?" It's just it's kind of monstrous.
Absolutely nuts.
It's monstrous. If you think of the genesis of it, the point of origin, how does it start? Where does it go? And the boys learnt that at school. Maybe he comes home and says it. Maybe he plants the seed in the parents. But there's a trigger. There's a point where they have that conversation, or something comes out like that. And I just think this is going to be, as this unfolds.
Well, it could be at home behaviour as well. Because when I was a kid, I had 4 younger brothers and I had 2 older stepbrothers, and the stepbrothers didn't always live with us. But that's another story. And because my parents, even though they were punks, and my mum was very young, she was a very young punk, and she was single mum with me for a while as well. And my parents were very hardcore on the roles. Because I was the only girl, I had to be girly because I'm the only girl, and the boys get to do whatever the fuck they want. And I was always sort of like envious of that. So I used to do things like sneak into my brother's room and steal his train set, or and I always used to have to wear dresses as well. So I used to sneak into his room and steal his shorts and t-shirts and put them on and play with the train. And I remember getting caught doing this. And my mum looking me square in the eye and going, "You're a girl. You have to do girl things." And my little brain went to, well, what's wrong with me then if I'm not doing that? And I got very upset because I thought, and I was only little. I was like 4. I thought, well, maybe, why am I not a boy? Yeah. But it wasn't because, it wasn't deeper. It wasn't, if my mum had turned around and gone, "Your gender's wrong and you're in the wrong body," I would have believed her. But because she didn't do that, and she just said, "You're a girl, you're supposed to play these things," I don't agree with that. But whatever. This is how I grew up. So obviously I had turmoil about that. But as I got older, I was able to process. And what I processed is that I didn't necessarily want to be a boy because I didn't want to be a girl. I wanted to be a boy because what I was seeing in my household is that boys get away with everything. They can burp, they can sit with their legs open, they can punch each other, they can climb a tree. I climb a tree in my dress. There's no way I'm getting down the tree in my dress unless I just jump and the dress goes over my face. Inconveniences that girls have.
But those things matter because those little things shape your life, don't they?
I suppose they do. This is why I get annoyed when people tell me I have no idea, I haven't experienced anything. It's like, I have. I very much thought that I was meant to be a boy. I was very upset about it, but I kept it to myself because I was a little bit introverted as well. So very, very upset about it. And I did think, when I'm 12, I'm just going to be a boy. I used to do things like that. But it's very childlike thinking. And I don't think my parents were like necessary. I don't agree with what they did, but I don't think they did it out of any malice. This is just what their thing was,
it's very much of the time, isn't it?
Yeah, and also I was the only girl, so I think they just wanted me to be girly, and then I was a tomboy anyway because I'm quite stubborn, so I got my own way in the end. Being tomboy, cut my hair short, all that shit, tracksuits, everything. I did get my own way in the end, but took a long time.
It's just such a different conversation, isn't it? And it's susceptible to all sorts of criticisms about the rigidity of gender stereotypes and why can't you let a girl just play with a bloody train set or wear shorts if she wants to. I think these days certain parents most parents I think would say, yeah, you're fine, just go for it, just do it.
But they've overcorrected it.
Exactly. But
I've got to stop doing this on camera. Those have told me to stop doing that. Because sometimes I do this and when I'm talking and it doesn't look good. So now I'm trying to go over here with it. So I'm not doing this on camera anymore.
Sort of like this. It's very graceful. I love it. But it's a whole heap better though than someone saying, let's sit down, talk about your gender identity, see if we've got to get you off to the clinic, mate.
No, I wouldn't put that into a kid. Like, we were babysitting. I won't say who. We were babysitting once, and the little boy his sister was taking a piss out of him because he wanted to wear nail polish, and he hadn't told anyone. And she was going, "Ha, he wanted to wear nail polish," and I went, "Well, he can." And they both, their minds were blown. They were like,
"Yeah."
And I kind of said, "Look, mate, you can put nail polish on if you want, but you're going to have a problem if you wear that to school because the other kids ain't going to understand why you've got nail polish on." It's as simple as that, and I left it as that. Yeah, like you can put it on if you want, but you're going to have to take it off because you're a boy, and the other kids ain't going to understand it. And I've left it as that because I'm not the parent. I can't say anything really. But I do think it's important to be truthful and say that the other kids might say something to you. But what I was secretly worried about is the teacher seeing it and then telling his parents that he's trans.
Yeah, God, yeah.
So I just kind of said, you can put it on if you want, but don't wear it to school.
Yeah, just so the real motivation is be careful. I'm not having this kid sent to the gender abattoir. And I've heard people say this. I've heard I had a really harrowing discussion on social media with a mother in Canada who was saying to me, she's got a little boy who's probably going to end up being a gay boy, and he's camp as Christmas, but he's a great ice skater, and
brilliant.
It's Canada, of course, and he's very graceful, and he's got the best grades
so good.
And all of it. But she said, I want to pull him out, and the reason I want to pull him out is that there's very, very gender identity ideology obsessed people there. I'm really, really worried about what they're going to do. They've already started conversations with him about his body and so on. In Canada, you're fucking with athletes. Rules. I know, Canada. And also just
because ice skating is like an athlete, it's a real skill.
A source of joy for a little gay boy, who probably might not have many sources of joy, might feel a bit alone. Yeah, might be in a minority. It might be the one thing in his life that he really likes, but no, gender takes that away from him. It's taken from him by these ghouls who say, if you're a camp gay boy, we need you on the operating table to be castrated.
I think it is really insidious as well, how, because would you say that being gay, you realise it early on, even if you don't have the words for it and you don't know what it is?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's right. Yeah.
So I think the gender Borg has preyed on that, and they're trying to say that gender identity is the same thing, and the kids realise it even if they don't have the words for it, even though it's not a thing, it doesn't exist in the way that they're saying it does. I think they've preyed on that. They've appropriated your language and your experiences.
They're transing the gay away. This is an existential attack on homosexuals. They want us to be aesthetic, passable heterosexuals. They want us to adopt the opposite.
Do you think that is the main goal, or do you think that's just one of the many heads of this?
I think it's one of the many heads of the
Hydra. Because I think that as well. I can't figure out which one's the main one, because there's so many different things going on. I think the kids in general is the main thing they're going for with this.
You have to look at who's driving it, and who's driving it is AGPs. So if you want to know what the goals are, what do you think the goals of an AGP are? Well, it's the subjugation of women for sexual access. That's the principal goal. That's why lesbians and female spaces are both hit at once. So primarily it's an anti-female force, and it hits those. But of course it ricochets out, doesn't it? Because if you're going to hit a female space and a lesbian space and start calling yourself a lesbian as a straight man, it's a naked and ridiculous act of appropriation. The concomitant is you will have to create the moral architecture of trans kids, which will then hit the gay boys. And if you are a straight AGP male, you don't particularly care about gay boys. You don't care if they get castrated. You don't care
about nobody if you're a straight AGP.
Well, that's right.
There's no care for anybody.
I think that's right.
I think that's interesting, because I do believe that this has been the straight AGPs are largely responsible. I also can't get my head around the amount of women in this that are pushing for it, and I actually think they have more influence than we give them credit for. Because when a woman stands up and says, "I don't know what a woman is," it's hard to argue against.
Yeah, that is difficult
for normal people that are scared.
Yeah, and it's difficult when a woman says, "Oh, I don't mind these men in my spaces."
Yeah, or I have a trans kid.
Yeah, because then
I have a trans kid and we don't mind.
Yeah, someone like me has to say, "Well, I mind my nieces or my sister being in your spaces."
Yeah,
but that's a cop out in a way. I shouldn't have to resort to that. I should have.
Oh, it should just be it's wrong.
Exactly, I should just be able to say that. Although I feel it more viscerally when I put it in those terms, so it makes it for me.
Do you know why?
Argument.
It's because these people argue emotionally, not logically. So you have to fight back emotionally.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe I'm guilty of that in response. But yeah, I mean, there are, and obviously we've got Susie Green, we've got Nancy Kelly, we've got all sorts of women in powerful positions. But, I don't want to overdo that point. We got Lord Cashman. We've got John Nicholson MP appearing for Mermaids. We got that bloke, that trustee that was just just resigned from Mermaids. That's a gay bloke.
So, the Nancy one.
Yeah.
I'm allowed to say
the
Nancy,
allegedly Nancy one.
Allegedly Nancy.
Section 3 honest opinion, I suppose. It's I don't know. I think maybe something I'm guilty of is that because I tend to mix in gay male environments, and that's very much my concern, and I spend a lot of time thinking about gay male rights, I tend to notice the gay males more. So that's more my focus, and those are the people that more disappoint me, because I look at it and say, well, come on, this is an empathetic experience as a gay man. You should be able to say, reading Richie's thread or looking at the Tavistock, you should be able to say, I have empathy for the gay boys in there. So I do tend to notice them more. I don't really have the words particularly for lesbians, though. I mean, the editor of Diva magazine, she's blocked us all. She's very on board with gender ideology. And, she's kind of former stalwart lesbian. I don't understand. I really don't understand that.
I don't understand it.
I don't understand Nancy Kelly. And I don't know. To be honest, I would defer to lesbians on that if they can come up with something, because I just don't understand
it. But I'm a straight
hits lesbians
woman as well.
hardest. And I don't, and for Nancy Kelly, of all people, to turn around and call lesbians sexual racists.
Oh, I know. That was insane. People can believe it when I wrote about it on Facebook. People like, where's this happening? Who said it? I was like, CEO of Stonewall, a woman calling lesbian sexual racist. Absolutely insane. But
then we had a mirror image of this, though, with Owen Jones saying, gay men should not tell anyone they're gay men. You shouldn't say you're same-sex attracted.
Get back in the closet.
Don't ask, don't tell. It's like, what the hell is going on here?
And also, he's a hypocrite, because didn't he say that he wouldn't sleep with a trans man? But
I don't know.
I
haven't heard him say that. But
it was something along those lines on Twitter after telling lesbians that they should accept trans women in their dating pool.
Oh, really?
Something along those lines. Yeah.
Yeah. I do not understand these guys. This is turkeys voting for Christmas. But it's worse than that. The Vichy gay, of course, recalls the Vichy regime in France, the traitors who did over their own people. But this is worse than that. You can turn over your own people and be complicit with the enemy, but to then humiliate them and call them sexual racists or tell them to stay in the closet, that's a special sort of utter betrayal of your community that I'm a man who's normally good with words, but I can't wrap words around that.
No, and I'm not even gay or lesbian or bisexual, and it makes me angry when I see things like that, because I just think, like, I hate using this language because it's language that these people use, but it's hard enough. It's hard enough just, do you know what? It's hard enough just being a person. It's hard enough being a little bit weird. It's hard enough being an outsider in any other way. And then you'd be gay or lesbian, you've got history and you've got baggage comes with that, right? If that's the right words to use. Yeah. And to have this be turned on you by people that are supposed to be part of your community, if that's the word to use as well. I hate the word community now.
They're supposed to be leaders. They occupy positions of huge influence and huge power. It matters what they say. They could do so much good with those positions. They could say, we have to calm this gender debate. They could say, here's positive role models for young gay men or young lesbians. But
you're not going to get that no more.
They could do so much good, but they could say we need to build a community, not build a schism in a community. But
they're creating it as well, because when the LGBT Alliance got together, the first thing these people on that side did, I'll say these people, I'll say that side, even though that's us and them talk. But
that's what it is.
The first thing they did was go after LGBT Alliance for excluding trans.
Yeah.
And it's like, so you don't think gays, lesbians and bisexuals should have a thing to themselves like they did before the T got lumped on the end?
Well, they could see what a threat it was, couldn't they? They could see
it does destroy their credibility.
They could see that if homosexuals were allowed political autonomy and a genuine voice, that we might start saying things like, well, you have to look at homophobia.
Because they used homophobia. They used the accusation of homophobia to scare other people into lying. I get it a lot. The people that cancelled me, but the biggest thing they say about me is that I'm homophobic, that what I'm doing is no different to what was done to the gays in the 80s, and it's the exact same all over again. But that seems to have won a lot of people on the music and art scene. It seems to have won them over because they're so scared of being homophobic. They don't want to be homophobic like I am.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
It's misusing.
They're using it as a weapon, but they're using it as a weapon not just against people like me or people that might have stood up for me. They're using it as a weapon against gay, lesbian, and bisexual people as well. They're saying that you're homophobic.
Yeah. I love that one. Yeah. Which is funny because I'm a director of a gay male pressure group. there we go. And
it's all right. I'm disabled and I get called ableist all the time.
Brilliant.
It's because I'm not in a wheelchair, so I can't possibly be disabled in any sort of way.
Yeah, you fraud. These are silencing tactics by disreputable scoundrels who will deploy serious charges like that on a hair trigger. They do the same with transphobia, and we get to the point where I just roll my eyes when I hear it. I'm not. I don't know if you saw. I did a TV thing with Julia Hartley Brewer, and when she mentioned transphobia, I
need to see it.
When she mentioned transphobia, I didn't realize I did it because she said, "Well, some people say you're transphobic," and I rolled my eyes. And I got out of the interview. My phone afterwards was just full of everyone DMing going, "That was such a camp eye roll you did."
That's so good.
I was like, "I'm sorry, I can't take this seriously anymore. I can't take this seriously, and I'm not going to." And also, I'm not going to be scared. I'm not going to be scared by this. You can call me a homophobe. You can call me a transphobe. All you are doing is you're retelling. Yeah, you're distracting. You're trying to silence. You're trying to cancel. And all this is the 7 deadly sins. We no longer have religion. We have gender. We don't have the 7 deadly sins. We have phobias and ist.
I said this to do the other day.
That's what we have.
I said about the whole God-shaped hole thing. I don't know who said that though.
Yeah.
It might have been Douglas Murray or Jordan Peterson. But you know, I'm not necessarily religious or anything, but I can see how this has been clamped onto as the new religion, and they don't have the, what is it, the 10 Bible rules,
10 Commandments and the
10
seven
Commandments.
Sins.
That's it.
Yeah.
Shit, I went to Sunday school. I should know all this shit.
Don't
so
worry
they
about
don't have the 10 Commandments, or they do, but it doesn't say don't kill people, or adultery is wrong, or robbery is wrong. It
Thou
says
must not misgender on Twitter.
Yeah. Thou must not misgender. Thou must not.
Thou must
you
not
know what I mean?
appropriate.
Yeah.
Thou must use
and
preferred pronouns. Oh, we could have such a laugh.
exactly.
Maybe we should.
So
oh, this will be
I
such a
should
good
draw a
Twitter thread,
picture of
mate.
it.
Yeah, you should.
I should draw a picture of the commandment, the gender commandment.
Yeah,
But that's
yeah,
basically what they've got. Their morals are completely different. Like, in terms of religions, I could be wrong in this, but most religions, the core of the message is pretty much the same. Don't murder people. Don't cheat on your wife. Don't like kill people.
Don't
Obviously,
covet
that's
your
murder, isn't
neighbour's
it?
ox.
Yes.
One of the commandments. Yeah. Don't you be looking at my ox, all right?
But you know,
Wishing
do you know what I
owned it.
mean about the basic morality is like there's right and wrong, and these things are wrong, these things are right. Some of it's outdated, you know, like stoning gay people to get to death.
Yeah.
Well outdated. We don't take that seriously no more.
we do that on Twitter now. Yeah.
Yeah, Twitter
Yeah.
only. But yeah, some of it's outdated, but some of it's still relevant. Like, we still think adultery is really bad. We still think, we don't just think, we know murder is really bad. We still think stealing is really bad, like theft.
Yeah.
So some of it's still relevant. And it seems like with gender ideology, if you call it a new religion, it doesn't have that moral compass.
No.
The moral compass is all around what you as an individual want. It's not about what's better for the good of everybody.
Yeah.
Like, for the good of everybody, we've decided that murder is awful and we're not going to allow it in our society. For the good of everybody, there are punishments, or supposed to be punishments, for stealing from each other. So we've done that for the greater good.
You know, a movement that is built on pornography and anime is going to produce a threadbare series of catechisms about what constitutes sinfulness. And because it is incoherent as a moral doctrine anyway, because gender has no morality, it's completely incoherent, it's completely consumerist, it's completely sexually anarchic, it has opened the door to paedophile agendas, as we have seen vividly in the past few weeks. Because it's incoherent and it doesn't make much sense, it reads like a badly written script. It's no wonder that just as its 10 commandments are incoherent, its 7 deadly sins are silly and are more. It is more that they find their utility in the mob calling them out and shouting them. I mean, look, it's no accident that when J.K. Rowling called Pink News clickbait comic, which I rather enjoyed.
Good. So good.
She's like the goddess Kali at the moment with 6 swords going. I love her. She's great. Pink News decided to do a snapback where they do a little comic strip of her, and it was just one frame, and it was J.K. Rowling reading Pink News, and guess what? They painted her as a witch with the black hat.
This goes back to that.
What does that tell you?
Goes back to that boring, unimaginative. Oh, I've got to find this picture because I'll do a spoof of it.
It's moribund. It is arid like a desert. There is nothing in gender. There is nothing in their virtues. There's nothing in their sins.
They've got really nothing to say for themselves.
It means nothing. It's incoherent. I mean, I've seen so many people on social media say, I'm just not bothered about being called transphobic anymore because it just doesn't mean anything. I
feel that way about a lot of words. So there's transphobic, homophobic. I don't care when I'm called homophobic. Racist. I don't care when I'm called racist anymore. Nazi, fascist. I don't care when I'm called these things anymore. Bigot. But the problem is that because those words are so unjustly overused, they don't mean anything anymore. So when somebody is telling me, oh, there's a Nazi fascist, I'm thinking, do you mean Hitler or do you mean J.K. Rowling? Because I can tell the difference and you can't. So who are you talking about? Like,
well,
do you know what I mean?
This is the problem with the overproduction of the currency. It leads to inflation, and the currency drops in value, and the currency of transphobia, homophobia, bigot, racism, whatever, that's just dropped in value, because again, a Camille Paglia thing. We live in this basic denigrated society where postgraduates think their job when they read Shakespeare is to tut and pick out points of racism or transphobia or something like that, or where queer theory says you can read, I don't know, the works of T.S. Eliot and then try and cram in some sort of gay relationship at some point. And these are culturally very, very limited cul-de-sacs. They are not grand sweeps of civilization type studies. They are not grand narratives. They're not grand thoughts. It's tut-tutting, it's nitpicking, it's bureaucracy, it's checking papers. We're back to gender as bureaucracy. That's what it is. It's bureaucracy, it's pornography, it's mediocre, it's limited. It is a low horizon. It is a close border. It is a small land gender. It means very little. Sadly, it's extremely dangerous for that reason. But then all fascist prospectus or prospectuses, whatever it is, have vanishingly limited horizons. All of them this is why Hitler burnt paintings and books. And why the Nazi art show was just awful crap. All of them mean nothing. They are nothing. They are comfortable, bourgeois, safe little exercises in little stripes and columns, like those stripes of the trans flag. And you put them to one side, you make a little spreadsheet. And you could put the kids in one column or another. There's a reason they look like spreadsheets, because these people think like spreadsheets. They're incapable of art. They're incapable of poetry. All they could do is take their clothes off and masturbate and open OnlyFans accounts and then moan on Twitter. And that's why they're so angry. That's one of the reasons this debate's supercharged, because you've got a sexually frustrated, degenerate class of culturally blunted mediocrities who are so angry at the world and the limited vista it's given them and the limited expressions it's given them and this aesthetic flesh cult it's given them. I would be angry too. I don't blame them.
But the answer is doing it to themselves as well.
That's the ultimate crime of gender, I'm afraid. It makes you a prisoner and you don't realize you're incarcerated. It makes you a criminal and you don't realize you've been sentenced. It has that quality to it. It's like the Matrix. These kids don't realize they're in the Matrix just yet.
I've never seen the Matrix.
Well, everyone's plugged in. Do you know the thing? Everyone's plugged into a computer and they live in
I
a
sort of get the gist
world.
of it. I think I might have seen it once, but I've never actually
the first one's good.
proper.
The first one's good.
I should watch it actually, because I think I might see the parallel. I know the guys who made the Matrix are saying that they're women now, aren't they?
That's right. The Wachowski brothers are now the Wachowski sisters.
Yeah, those guys. And guys, it's a gender neutral term, so there you go.
Both AGPs. But the first one is really good.
Is it? All right.
Yeah.
I'll give that a go. I think we've come up to a good timestamp on this video.
Okay, mate.
Very good.
Fantastic.
And I've really enjoyed chatting to you for this.
Yeah, me too, mate. It's always great chatting to you.
You'll have to come back.
Absolutely. And we'll have to do this in a pub. So when's this going to be up then?
I haven't thought about that yet. Because I did an interview with Eva. And,
awesome.
I did one the other day. And I'm doing this one. I think I'm going to do one more. And then I've got a few weeks worth saved up so that I'm not constantly feeling stressed out about I've got to get a video out this week, just in case something's going on. Just in case. So in the next few weeks, definitely.
Cool. Just let me know. I look forward to it. It's been lovely chatting. Are you coming to LGBT Alliance conference?
No. This is going to sound really sort of weird. It's going to sound cringy. It is cringy. The reason I'm not going is because I think G's and B's should have something to themselves.
That's fair enough. That's a completely fair point of view.
Early in the morning, as the sun comes up, I just wanna have a cup. There's one drink, that's the one for me. Won't you please make me a cup of tea?